think it's about time I finally took a look at this game. Look, I made fun of it in the past due to its status as an easy target, but now that I've actually played and finished the game, I can safely say, let me be clear for the sake of time. I am fully aware of the game's divisive launch back in December of 2020. I bought the game 6 months later and did one playthrough off recording. I did another one for this video, but most of my opinions are coming from my first playthrough, which is still fresh in my mind. While I'm getting everything set up here, I will say I do like the character customization in this game. It's kind of deep if you catch my drift, but your name is locked to V, and the game is primarily played in the first person, so you won't get many opportunities to see your discount Jared Leto Joker.
I'm just gonna hurt. Yeah, really bad.
Anyway, here's Jesus V. I don't know whether it should be pronounced as Jesus V or Jesus V again. Anyway, since I suck at segues, you can choose one of 3 life paths for V. And yeah, they're somewhat disappointing. All it does is change the opening and gives you exclusive dialogue options during certain quests. And no matter what life path you choose, aside from a location and backstory difference, you still start from square one as you try to make a name for yourself within Night City. You still meet with Jackie Wales and Dexter Deshawn, you still rob a crate from Arasaka and witness the murder of its CEO, Saburo Arasaka. Jackie still dies, V puts the chip in his head, you get your brains blown out by Dex with the chip still in your head, which turns out to be the personality construct of Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves, and you have to get Silverhand out of your head before the construct kills V and claims his or her body as his own. Oh my god. I can't believe I just did that in one breath. It's not all bad, however. You do get to learn a bit more about Silverhand as the game goes on via main or side quests. He's basically an insane rock star with a fuck the corpos mentality. He's also kind of a dick, but he does learn how to not be a total Johnson as the game goes on via certain quest lines. You can also get one of 7 different endings once you get to the mission that I swear to God was probably either a mistake or was completely intentional. Either way, I can't pronounce it. None of that really matters though, because once you meet with Silverhand, the world is pretty much your oyster. And if there's one thing I can compliment this game on, it's how replayable this game is. There are countless ways to deal with pretty much anything the game throws at you. You can be a pacifist, you can sneak around enemies and avoid detection, you can become John Wick with a possible asthma problem, or you could just be like me on my first playthrough and upgrade a hammer to ludicrous DSP and go on an anti-horny rampage. Yes, I really did do that. But why use violence when we can make all the love in the world? All while your lover asserts their dominance over you. This game kills me sometimes. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, this game is not in a very polished state. From the driving being so slippery you could slide across the road, to even the game's balancing, where it's so skewed against you that you'll die often in the early acts, but once you get to a respectable level and get some high-level armor, the game either melts, or all the enemies and bosses become damage sponges. Let me put it like this just to save some time. It has gotten so bad, there's a 78-page mega report detailing every gameplay-related bug, balance issue, and even general jankness throughout the entire game. Most of my issues with the game are mostly small ones that actually add up over a 30 to 60 plus hour playthrough, but there's still so many things I can compliment the game on. Like the crazy amount of cybernetics you can equip, my personal favorite being the double jump module, the absurd amount of well-crafted lore for Night City and its citizens, and the crafting and upgrade system, though a bit slow, is actually really freaking good if you spec into it properly. And some of the side content, though a bit repetitive at times, is quite fun. Also, hold the phone, I just realized, it's 2077 and there's still cars roaming the street. Who needs cars when you can teleport all over the place? I do see the potential that this game has. It just got dealt a very bad hand. Could the game use more polish? Absolutely. Does the game have fundamental issues that need fixing? Absolutely. But I'd be lying if I say I didn't enjoy my 2 playthroughs. And you know what? I'll probably do another one. Thankfully, CDPR is in full damage control mode and is trying their best to fix the game. The modding scene is also throwing their hat into the ring as well, and I'm glad they are because I'm seeing some really good stuff on the Nexus. I do think it's a must-play, with a couple caveats. If you're opting for the PC version of the game, whether it's on Steam, GOG, or Epic Screw You Store, make sure you have a decent rig that runs the game smoothly, and get a few fixes on the Nexus. Just be careful on what you download there, because yeah, for console players, if you can't play the game via backwards compatibility on the now current-gen consoles, tread with extreme caution. This review is probably going to be very outdated, so I may come back to this game once all the kinks get ironed out and all the planned content gets released as paid or free DLC. I also heard through the grapevine that version 1.5 along with the next-gen update will be a soft relaunch for the game, so can't wait to see how that turns out. In the meantime, I don't know, just shut up, have fun, or go outside and touch grass or something. You kids have it easy these days with your Fortnites, your Roblox, and your Minecrafts. Back in my day, this was all I had. Blockland. Basically, Lego for broke kids. Wait, isn't that like Mega Bloks or something? Either way, I spent so much time on this game as a kid, and I kinda wanted to show it to you. After getting a refresh with the tutorial and trying to get used to building with the numpad again, which is very clunky, I then went to the multiplayer to... Alrighty then, single player it is. Either way, this is where problems start to crop up with this game. Without multiplayer, this game is just empty. I mean, sure, you can go into the single player and build things, play the included games, screw with physics, or let them screw you, and maybe mess with the game's subpar lighting engine, but there's not really much on offer aside from all that. Especially since version 21 is not only the latest version of the game, but also removed a ton of features that made this game fun to begin with. Let that sink in for a moment. I could go back to versions prior to V21 to experience the magic that got me hooked in the first place, but I don't have my original Blockland ID anymore, so shit. And mods won't help either because they're either hard to find or they've been scrubbed off the web. I could also try its spiritual successor Brickadia, but it's an alpha as of me making this video, and I need to confirm my phone number on their Discord just to try out the alpha. Yeah, no, I'll pass. What makes this even worse is that the servers are still up, and the game is more dead than Battlefield 2042. And the servers are either password protected, dead, or there's not really many players within it. Honestly, this was one of the hardest games for me to rate personally. It was so difficult, I almost scrapped the whole thing. It was brimming with life like 15 plus years ago. Mods, tutorials, machinimas, skits, short films, animations, you name it, Blockland did that. But nowadays, it's just a shell of its former self. And most, if not all, the magic is sadly gone. Plus, there's other sandbox games that does everything that Blockland did, but way better. If I had to rate this game, I'd say avoid the Steam version like the plague. But versions of the game before version 21, give them a shot via B4V21. It'll allow you to play older versions of the game online again, assuming you have an OG Blockland ID, or you pirated it like a mad lad. If you don't feel like doing that, however, this reviewer on Steam's got the right idea. Before you ask, I don't plan on reviewing all the games in this franchise. For one, not counting certain spin-offs, mobile games, or console versions, The Sims is very similar gameplay-wise across all 4 mainline entries. If you don't know the gameplay loop, basically, you create your character, whether it's a version of you, your friends, family, famous people, or fictional characters, build or buy them a home, and just watch them live their lives under one roof. And, you know, somewhat influence them like an all-knowing god who can accidentally or purposefully kill them on a whim. And secondly, I have very little experience with 1, 2, and 4. Yeah, basically, I have the most experience with The Sims 3. I do own a physical copy of it and most of its expansion packs, but unless you want to deal with Origin, EA's game launcher, get it on Steam. Preferably when it's on sale because, oh my, what the fuck? These prices on Steam should be a crime. But then again, I still rebought the game plus all of its expansion packs here on sale, so... La 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 la! Anyway, let's boot the game up and... oh, shit. I should probably touch upon this real quick. The game doesn't recognize newer video cards, so if you're rocking a GPU newer than, let's say, a GeForce 9800 GTX Plus, you're gonna run into a lot of issues on top of the issues the game already has. Well, I've got a list here, so let's see. Performance and frame pacing issues? Check. No FPS limiter, meaning it'll stress your GPU in a manner similar to crypto mining? Check. Saves getting corrupted if they get too bloated? That one might actually be the worst of all. Bad sound mixing? What is this, Sonic Adventure? Strange AI and pathing issues? Well, that's one way to deal with a problematic sim. Give him a stroke. Speaking of strokes, here's a sim having a stroke. Lots of random crashing? Yeah, I think you get the point. And the more expansion packs, stuff packs, store content, and mods you have active, the worse it becomes. But you know what? Even after all this, I still love The Sims 3. There's more on offer here than what The Sims 4 offered day one. The Sims 3 is the only game in the series to have an open world, allowing you to go say hi to your neighbors without a loading screen getting in between. Take note, Sims 4, I really wish you improved upon it and made it less buggy. The personality traits, introduced here, are handled way better than in 4, mostly because of the creative possibilities. How about Create a Sim? You win this round, Sims 4, with your tugging and pulling like clay. Throw in expansion packs, mods, custom content, or stuff packs if you're sadistic, and you have a solid game that has a lot of life left, even in 2022. For example, you can form a band in Late Night, become a Ghostbuster in Ambitions, become Lara Croft with bladder control problems in World Adventure, become the crazy cat person in Pets, freeze your balls off in Seasons, Own a houseboat in Island Paradise, though from what I heard, it actually breaks the stability of the game for some. Die from protesting about death in university life, what the shit? Or in Into the Future's case, go into the future, see previous winning lotto tickets, go back in time, get a ticket, and then win it big. Now look, I am aware that there's some packs that really didn't get the love that they needed. I mean, first off, Showtime is just late night with a half-hearted Katy Perry skin, and the stuff packs in general are just super overpriced. Oh yeah, and because I suck at segues, there's also fan challenges you can do if you get bored of the main game or don't like EA's offering. We've got the classic Legacy Challenge, the hardest challenge in Vanilla Sims 3, gee, I wonder why, the Runaway Teen Challenge, Rags to Riches, Zombie Apocalypse, One Man 100 Kids, the works. I can't find the original post with this challenge here, but I do remember my personal favorite being the Sitcom Challenge. It's quite a simple challenge. Set your Sims' autonomy to high, and watch the magic happen. It's kind of downright silly the situations that can occur with conflicting personalities like this. If you want to play The Sims 3 in 2022, you're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops just to get it working on modern hardware. So of course, if that's a problem for you, then yeah, stay away from The Sims 3. You're better off playing The Sims 4. But if that's not an issue for you, then you know what? I'd say give it a shot. I think you'll have as much fun as I had when I first played it. Even today, I still have fun with this game. Flaws and all. I mean, come on. What other game will allow you to create a monstrosity like this? I think I made a huge mistake. I mean, does this game really need an introduction? It's one of the best-selling video games of all time, outselling Tetris. It was also influential to YouTube around its quote-unquote release. Mostly for the worst. And speaking of YouTube, that's actually how I discovered the game. I remember an old Household Hacker video promoting the game when it was just a basic Java game. After seeing a few videos of the game myself and playing it via non-official methods, I was hooked, along with millions of others. Not to mention, it was printing billions for both Mojang and its creator, Marcus Pearson, or Notch. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I am so sorry, my good sir. Mojang would later be sold to Microsoft for $2.5 billion, and the rest is history. Not one of the biggest acquisitions Microsoft has made, but you can go bigger. I said bigger. Oh shit, go back. For that one person who's never played this game, first off, what the hell? And second, I got you covered. In the single player, you have the option of creating a survival world or a creative world. And I'm not going to count the Java exclusive hardcore mode because that's just survival mode locked onto the hardest difficulty with permadeath thrown in. Your goal in survival mode is to, well, survive. Okay, well, your real goal is to get powerful equipment and enchantments so that you can travel to the end and destroy the Ender Dragon. The game doesn't tell you any of this, by the way. You're just left to fend for yourself every time you spawn into a survival world. Thing is, you don't have to do any of the things I just described. Instead, you can just do whatever you want in this vast, endlessly generating world. Oh, and you can even play with friends via multiplayer. And speaking of which... oh god, do I have to? Although the game is very fun with friends, there's something about playing it on your own that just fills me with peace and zen. Look, I've played this game for so long and I still haven't figured it out myself. Even after consulting a few videos that tries to describe this feeling of zen. But then again, I still let that peace and zen consume me because I think we all need that kind of zen in our lives. Even creative mode has this sort of zen that I can't describe. Oh yeah, and like I said earlier, the game's learning curve is not really good, especially in earlier versions of the game. And yeah, you can go back and play betas and alphas of the game. However, I would not recommend that unless you know what you're doing. I mean, sure, you can throw in mods to improve your experience or create new ones on every available version of the game, but that part only applies to the Java edition of the game. Oh yeah, other platforms got a slice of this Minecraft pie. The Xbox 360, PS3, PS Vita, Wii U, even the 3DS got some love, though from what I hear the 3DS version is kinda jank. Those versions of the game were sadly discontinued, but Microsoft is pushing what fans call Bedrock Edition, available on PC, Xbox consoles, PS4, Nintendo Switch, even on mobile devices. Don't worry, it's almost identical to Java Edition with differing physics, cross-platform multiplayer, and even performance improvements, which I welcome with open arms because, oh dear god, Java Edition performs terribly. Unless you use an external mod like the ever-popular Optifiner Sodium, I use those all the time, the vanilla Java edition will bring top-of-the-line gaming PCs to their knees. Well, I know what you're thinking. Well, if you're sucking Bedrock Edition's cock so much, why don't you go to that version? Well, this might come as a shock, but that version also does have a few issues in my book. For one, a few features from Java Edition are strangely missing from Bedrock Edition, and secondly, microtransactions. You guys should know my stance on any form of microtransactions. I am not a fan of them. Plus, Java allowed you to do this kind of stuff for free for like years. That's what makes the whole thing even worse, because the marketplace is full of pre-made skins, texture packs, and stuff for this in-game skin creator. At least a lot of the stuff in the marketplace is community made, so that kind of softens the blow, but not by much. Even with the performance issues, I still think Java is the best version of the game. Mostly because it's been around for longer, it still has a vibrant community, more so than Bedrock, and has more mods and custom content for it. Don't get me wrong, mods are a thing for Bedrock, but it's just no contest. However, no matter the version, I still think this game should be played at least once in your life. With how cheap and accessible the game is, why wouldn't you? Both versions are available on PC Game Pass, and starting this summer, if you buy Java Edition, you'll get Bedrock for free and vice versa. 2 games for the price of 1? I say go for it, man. Or ma'am, I don't discriminate here. Just be careful if you decide to become a Minecraft tuber. You know, I was originally going to say something along the lines of "you'll never escape" or some crap, but I'm just going to show these tweets on screen instead. Hey, don't go shooting the messenger here. I'm not the one who cheated at a speed run. So, you've finally arrived. Right now, we are the 18th of June, and this port released yesterday. So, I thought I'd go ahead and give you my quick thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrade on Steam. I'm just going to say this now. If you've already played the PS5 version of Remake Integrade, then you've already played the PC version of the game. And if you've already played the PC version of the game, I think the only reason why you'd want to purchase this game is because of the Steam Deck compatibility. So if you want to play the game on Steam Deck without having to jump through a bunch of hoops, then you can go right ahead and do so. But I'm just going to give you my quick thoughts on the remake itself. And coming from someone who's never played FF7 Remake, I actually am having a very good time with the game. I've clocked in 3.3 hours, and you know what? I want to keep going. And this also coming from someone who couldn't click with the OG FF7. I tried twice. Once, I played the bombing mission, then I promptly forgot about it. And then I tried again when the modding scene was a thing, and I tried to add some more polish to the game, and I still couldn't click with it. And I just dropped it after that. And then, of course, I decided, you know what, I'm going to wait for FF7 Remake to come to PC, because Remake Integrate was only on PlayStation 5, and those were very hard to come by, so yeah, who knows, it might come to PC eventually. And lo and behold, it came to PC. It just arrived on Epic Game Store first, and the stuff I've been hearing from the PC version of the game initially was awful. Like, it was stuttery, it didn't perform well, it was a lazy port altogether, and to top it all off, they ended up charging so much friggin' money for it. I'm just gonna say this straight up. This game is not worth $100, and the game was a year old at this point. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake was a year old, and they're still charging an arm and a leg for it. It was ridiculous. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait for it to arrive on Steam, and then lo and behold, just out of nowhere, they were like, oh yeah, we're releasing the game on Steam. So I took advantage of a little sale that they had, where instead of paying $93.49 Canadian, I got to pay $66.37 Canadian. And yeah, I'm pretty sure you can tell I didn't want to pay $100 for the game, so. Now, while I was installing the game, I'm just gonna say this now, I completely forgot how large modern games are. This game clocks in at 94.2 gigabytes. But that's not even the largest game that I have in my collection. No, that goes to Grand Theft Auto 5, clocking in at 105.16 gigabytes. Holy shit. Now, before I even launched the game, I did do a couple changes before I even launched it. And the first change was I forced the game to run in DirectX 11. And by using this command in the launch settings, that's how you do it. However, when I did that, my performance was fine, but I had ugly screen tearing and hitches, even in the FMV. And I'm like, is this a bad omen? Because holy shit, like, this is awful, awful screen tear. But thankfully, I didn't have anything as bad as that, thankfully. And the game ran pretty smoothly, but the screen tearing was like all over the place. So I just played as much as I could, but then the next day, I actually ended up doing another fix, and that was going into the NVIDIA control panel and forcing VSync. And by the way, both of these fixes are in full effect here in this footage that you're seeing. And I will say this now, the game performed pretty dang well for me. So that's good. Of course, there's still a couple nitpicks that I have. And one of them just so happens to be the setting that I heard about that you can't disable by default, and that is the game's dynamic resolution. What dynamic resolution is, it basically drops the game's resolution in order to hit the target frame rate that you set it. For example, I set it to 60 FPS. So that means it'll start decreasing the resolution in order to hit that frame rate. And I played the game at 1080p, 60 FPS, and the game hit it pretty consistently. I didn't really notice anything going up, except maybe in the photo mode here. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. But aside from that, yeah, the game pretty much performed pretty well. I didn't really notice anything too drastic, thankfully. But you could tell that there's still a lot of work to be done, especially for a game that is this visually, like, breathtaking. I will say this now. This game is not worth $90, and that is the hill I am going to die on. So if you can, take advantage of that 29% off of Steam when you can, because paying $70 is better than paying $100, and that's after tax, mind you. But if you can't take advantage of that, like, 29% off, then just wait for a price drop or wait for a way better price during another sale or something, because this game is not worth full price. Oh yeah, and there's also no other DRM or strange privacy invading stuff in the EULA, so that's a positive, because I thought they were going to follow along with what Sony did with Horizon and Days Gone. Thank God they didn't. Like I said earlier, I'm having a really good time with FF7 Remake. However, the port itself just reeks of laziness. Also, I don't know if this is just me, but the load times when loading a save is pretty long. Like, check this out. Like, this footage here is unedited. I'm just gonna leave this in the corner while that's going on. It'll disappear the moment it's done. But also, I did encounter a couple hitches, like a couple big and small hitches. Like, the small hitches, okay, I can deal with. But the big hitches, I literally thought my computer was gonna shit the bed and just kind of like, just crash. But no, it didn't, thankfully. Once again, if you want to play FF7 Remake Integrade right now on Steam, take advantage of that sale whenever possible. I will leave a link in the description of the Steam page. But here's the thing as well. If you have the PS5 version of the game, just stick with that version. You don't have to get the PC version at all. And with how much they're going to charge for it once the sale is over, yeah, no, just wait. Or take advantage of the current sale. Just saying. You know, I've been thinking. Valve and Nintendo have something in common. They own franchises that have been idle for a very long time. This is one of those games. Before getting stuck in tech demo limbo, Portal 1 and 2 were just fantastic puzzle games set in the Half-Life universe. Despite the fact that was mostly done for budget reasons, as seen with the first game, the writers of both franchises did not hesitate to mention both of their respective facilities by name, Black Mesa and Aperture Science. In any case, Portal 1 starts with someone named Chell waking up in a strange chamber with only a bed, a toilet, and a radio playing someone's stupidly groovy mixtape. She's a test subject being led by an AI named GLaDOS and are told to solve puzzles, and yeah, that's all she wrote.
Please refrain from... Turn back.
Oh, don't worry about that, everything's fine. To solve 99% of these puzzles, you'll need to use the portal gun provided by the game. Well, it's not exactly given to you, you will have to work for this son of a bitch, but once you have it, everything falls right into place. Some puzzles are dead simple, while others will indeed require you to think, though most of them relies on physics. And because the game is built on the Source engine, you'll be treated to some sexy, sexy physics. Whatever that means nowadays. It also does a very good job of teaching you the game's mechanics without breaking the flow of the game. However, before you know it, you're fighting GLaDOS and incinerating her personality cores. GLaDOS is then presumed dead, and your unconscious body's being dragged somewhere else after the facility blows up in a blaze of glory. We then finish with the credits song, Still Alive, a song that is so well known that it became a downloadable song for Rock Band 1 and 2. I wish I made that up. Look at these people rocking out to a very chill tune. Better than Skrillex and Guitar Hero Live, that's for sure. But yeah, the game is not that long, clocking in at 3 to 5 hours, it doesn't overstay its welcome, it loads decently quick on PC, and the writing is pretty damn funny. Ellen McLean's performance as GLaDOS didn't go down in legend for nothing, you know, and her filmography is certainly something else, I'll tell you what. The only problem I have with the first game is the walking speed. Without a sprint button, it's a little too sluggish for me. It was possibly a leftover from Half-Life 2. Coupled with the airboat you could spawn in for some fucking reason. At least the game still functions after all this time, which is a huge accomplishment for a game released in 2007. Take notes, games for Windows Live. Sleep, on the other hand, is for the weak, because they started work on a sequel almost immediately after the first game was released. Portal 2 was announced at E3 2010, then released the following year for PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. And already the game's presentation is miles better than the first game. The Source Engine's guts are actually hidden quite well, until you enable the developer console, that is. We now have smooth menus that make me assume we're on a whole different engine. from the little white font and dull gray boxes from 2004, which doesn't scale properly with contemporary displays. Plus, the game itself looks fantastic even today. By the way, I am aware of the comic Lab Rat, which connects both Portal 1 and 2's narrative, but I'm not going to cover it for this video, though it is available in Portal 2's Extras menu if you want to give it a read. In any case, the single-player mode of the game begins normally, as if it was just a regular day in suspension. At least until... well, fuck, my alarm didn't go off. Then suddenly a core! Nah, that's just Wheatley, played by Stephen Merchant, and he's here to assist Chell in escaping this abandoned hellhole. She also suffered brain damage as a result of her longer than usual slumber. I guess being asleep for 50,000 years will do that to you. That doesn't stop her from picking up the portal gun and returning to work as if nothing ever happened. Then they both unintentionally wake up GLaDOS, who has a personal grudge against Chell, and I don't know why. All of this is irrelevant now, because we've received more tests. And the old portal gun. Oh my god, I've missed you, baby. Don't ever leave me again. But Wheatley has the brilliant idea of seizing control of the entire facility and bringing Chell to the surface. And to cut a long story short, we succeed after fucking up the turrets, the neurotoxins, and dealing with the stalemate. But then he goes mad with power, stuffs GLaDOS into a potato, and shoves the both of them down an elevator shaft. During a conveniently long fall, GLaDOS drops yet another bombshell. Wheatley was created to dumb her down so she couldn't outsmart her creators. And with an idiot in charge of the entire facility who has no idea how to run it or keep it from exploding, the facility has a high chance of going up in smoke, kinda like last time. Except that was my doing, and not by the hands of a living dumbass. As we make our way up to Wheatley and save GLaDOS, we pass by an old Aperture Science facility and listen to pre-recorded messages from Cave Johnson, the CEO of Aperture Science, voiced by J.K. Simmons. At this point in the game, gels are introduced, and apart from the cleansing gel, you'll see them a lot at this point. GLaDOS later responds to Cave during one of the pre-recorded announcements, but has no idea why she did that. After some consideration, it was discovered that GLaDOS was a young lady named Caroline who worked at Aperture as Cave's secretary, and she and Johnson were very close. When Cave was dying, he directed his scientists to study AI and brain mapping in order to store his mind on a computer. However, he didn't live to see it. Caroline was then put in charge of Aperture Science, forcefully, and was downloaded into the computer in his place. Though the powdery space dust would eventually claim his life akin to radiation poisoning, he at least came up with a combustible lemon in a hilarious yet iconic outburst.
I don't want your damn lemons! What am I supposed to do with these?
Yeah, take the lemons.
Demand to see Life's manager!
Once we reach the upper levels of the facility, Wheatley has already begun mashing puzzles together like some twisted plastic surgeon, and still wants you to solve them, even if the facility is on the verge of imploding. He also incorporates anti-gravity into his puzzles, which, when you throw in the gels, has something truly unique. I legit got stumped on a few of them, mostly because I'm a goddamn moron, and forgot you could do shit like this with the gravity fields and gels. Either way, it's only a matter of time before you escape his clutches and reach the final boss. By the way, if you know what you're doing, this boss fight is piss easy. We initiate a core transfer thanks to 3 corrupted cores, all voiced by Nolan North, then we try to resolve another stalemate.
Booby trap the stalemate button!
Oh, you clever motherfucker. With the entire facility collapsing around you, as a last-ditch effort, Chell shoots a portal straight to the moon, causing everyone and everything to get sucked into the cold vacuum of space. Wheatley then gets flung into space, with GLaDOS pulling Chell back through the portal and saving her life. Caroline is then promptly deleted from her system, realizes killing her is a pain in the ass, and then grants Chell her freedom by sending her up to the surface. Followed by a lovely melody performed by the turrets, and then another legendary credits song, Want You Gone. It's so good, I actually can't help but sing along to it. Heck, the lyrics are on screen. Kind of. Just like last time, the game isn't perfect. These loading screens are a prime example. I like the later historical changes to the Aperture logo once you end up underground, but they always sneak up on you. I mean, in the elevators, okay, sure, I expect that, but out in the open like this, it's very jarring and just pulls me straight out of the experience. Thankfully, the load times are super quick on PC, so that somewhat softens the blow. And by the way, if you paid attention earlier, I said single player. Oh yeah, there's more than just a story mode this time around. Custom test chambers can be created or played in, and thanks to the Steam Workshop, it makes it easy to find other player-created puzzles. Though the majority of Portal 2's Workshop enjoys pushing the bad/easy levels. I mean, look at the front page to see what I mean. Making puzzles, on the other hand, that's an entirely different beast. It only takes an idea and a little bit of your time. And after following a little video playlist on how to make good test chamber, I actually created this little test chamber right here, and it only took me like an hour. For those of you who want to try out the puzzle that I created, I'll leave a link in the description box below. There's also split screen and online co-op, which isn't the same as playing the story mode with your friends. I wish that was the case. No, these puzzles are entirely unique chambers that rely solely on collaboration in order to succeed. The story is even set during the events of the main game. It all boils down to Peabody and Atlas, both voiced by D. Bradley Baker, getting into a lot of unintentional mischief and discovering shit that they really shouldn't have discovered. If you have a friend on standby, I highly recommend playing the co-op mode with them. It's a great way to introduce the game to friends, and at times, it can be a barrel of laughs or screams of absolute agony. Some think that these games haven't aged well, but I respond with, yeah, it's timeless. And I'm honestly not alone in that sentiment, especially after I originally played both Portal 1 and 2 back in 2018. It's a no-brainer that you should play both of these games at least once in your life. They're not that lengthy, and both games are usually on sale for dirt cheap very frequently, so there's no reason to not play these games. And with both Portal 1 and 2 arriving on Nintendo Switch while I was making this video, now is a great time to actually play these outstanding puzzle games. On a completely unrelated note, I heard a theory going around that Gabe Newell hates the number 3. I'm starting to think that that's actually kind of true now that I think about it. What did that elusive number do to him to provoke this long-lasting hatred of never putting the number 3 in any of his game titles? I guess I'll never know. Okay, well, I know I'm very late to the party, but you know what? Better late than never, I suppose. We are the 9th of July, and I just uploaded the rush review for Portal 1 and 2. I'm going to say this now. The reason why I timed this was so that I didn't have to upload 2 rush review first impressions back to back. So, yeah, I want to keep some variety. Anyway, Metal Hellsinger, the game that has garnered a lot of buzz despite the fact that only a demo is out, and the game arrives in September. I've never heard of the publisher and developer behind the game, but goddamn, they clearly have money to spare because they have a lot of very prolific individuals in the music and the gaming industry. From David Goldfarb's inclusion to even metal artists contributing to the soundtrack, they clearly have money to spare, I'll tell you what. And the fact that you won't get hit with a DMCA by using them in your YouTube videos or Twitch streams, it's certainly commendable. And I'm totally going to put that to the test. Anyway, I first booted the game up. The game had the biggest stroke I've ever seen, and then the EULA popped up. I gave that a quick read, mostly due to the info collection and privacy policy. Those were like a huge concern for me. You can thank Sony for that, by the way. Although, the termination section was pretty damn funny when you read it out of context. Anyway, let me just sell my soul, and I'm in. I went ahead and calibrated the game, and then just played the tutorial, and I'm going to say this now. This is literally just Doom 2016, the rhythm game. I know, it's a cursed concept. It was stupid in my brain, but you know what? That's how it is. You slay demons to the rhythm of the music. And speaking of the music, I did briefly mention that earlier. The metal artists on board, there's a lot. The ones that I'm familiar with are System of Down and Lamb of God, respectively. Aside from that, I don't know anybody else. I'm very unfamiliar with them in some cases. The demo itself only contains the tutorial as well as one level, but aside from like the fact that the game is really friggin' hard and it'll put your reflexes to the test, it's pretty damn fun. The footage you're seeing is basically all the footage that I captured of the game because, well, I didn't want to go back and do it again because I got shit to do. But aside from that little factoid, I still find the game to be pretty dang enjoyable. And with the music, never have I wanted to headbang so hard to a soundtrack. Last game to do that was Doom 2016. And before you ask, I still haven't played Doom Eternal. I have to finish 2016 first. And for a Unity title, the game actually looks really damn good. And if this is what I have to expect from the final product, because the game's not out yet, it comes out in September, then yeah, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this project. And you should too. Anyway, I guess that's about it. If you want to play the demo, I will leave a link in the description. That's all I gotta say. Bye-bye. Sonic Omens was just a bad omen from the get-go. A part of me really didn't want to make a video on this fan game, but as Sonic tubers began delisting videos showcasing the game and watching the game trend on Twitter for the wrong reasons, why did I suddenly decide to go through with it when everyone else just refused to? Well, I've got a few reasons. Number 1, I thought I'd play through the game and give credit where it's due instead of parroting the same opinion that everyone else had. Let me save you some time on that one. It's either as bad as Ride to Hell Retribution or the Second Coming of Christ. Number 2, I was fully aware of the potential backlash I'd face as a result of this, primarily from delusional supporters of the game and the creator himself, who's basically an asshole. Number 3, I've done far worse. Trust me. Plus, I've already covered a Sonic fan game in the past, so what makes this any different?
Sonic GT is better than Omens.
And finally, number 4 would provide me an opportunity to bring up this document that was recently released on Twitter. It's pretty much about everything that transpired on Ouroboros Studios, the developers behind the game, and all the shady shit that went down. The link to the document is in the description below if you want to give it a read. Alright, enough rambling. Let's just get this over with. Where's the menu? Alright, that was weird. Let's try that again. What? I'm not gonna explain the plot because it's quite straightforward and by the numbers, even though the story is as melodramatic as Sonic 06, and it gets the job done at least. Trust me when I say this, when it comes to the blue blur, I do like the darker tone, but I've grown numb to it because 99% of the time it's executed very poorly. Also, Sonic X representation? Holy shit, okay, I dig this. Even if Chris Thorndike is looking more like Sora instead of a thorn in my dick. And he's dead! Okay. Omens also has animated cutscenes and full voice acting for pretty much everyone. It's fine if a little try-hardy at times, and some of the cast members do appear to speak with a very pronounced Russian accent, particularly Shadow, who sounds more like King T'Challa for some reason.
Rouge, I don't feel the presence of an emerald inside this temple. Doctor has beaten us to it.
There's also weird errors in the subtitles, as well as unusual camera angles, particularly in the last episode. Did Quentin Tarantino direct this? Because I think your foot fetish has gone a little too far. Let me get the positives out of the way first. The game looks fantastic. The Infinity engine is an amazing engine for the boost formula. I love the way Shadow is handled here with his chaos powers. And the opening levels are fantastic. Everything else is
Complete friggin' toss.
Look, I admire the developers' efforts to create a tough and challenging Sonic game in the vein of Sonic Unleash's daytime stages, but it's evident that more testing was needed. Either levels are ambiguous about what you need to do or where you need to go, or you die to highly questionable collision detection. That happens more often than you think. 90% of my deaths were outside of my control, such as getting stuck in springs and objects for no reason, which happens a lot, and it's worse in boss fights, which means the boss gets a free hit on you. On the subject of bosses, they're the worst part of the game. They're not only faster than you, but because the camera in fast-paced circumstances is slow and loose, you're bound to get blindsided by shit you can't see. Combine that with the iffy collision detection I mentioned earlier, and you've got yourself a recipe for rage. And yeah, I did change the camera sensitivity, but it did nothing to circumvent the issue. There's also many times where the game bombards you with enemies in confined spaces with very little breathing room. At least Shadow has an equalizer in the form of Chaos Blast, making the Maria boss fight piss easy if you know what you're doing. I'm baffled that I managed to get an S rank on this after attempt number 42069. Sonic, on the other hand, doesn't have that kind of equalizer, unless you want to count that tether rope that he's got. But either way, the final boss can kiss my unkept hairy ass. All the problems I mentioned are exacerbated in this fight. Now, I'm no game developer, but this is not how you design a good final boss. This was where I decided to throw in the towel because this fight felt impossible. Oh, and the less I talk about the Tails biplane sections, the better. That, however, pales in comparison to the rabbit hole I found myself in as a result of that document I briefly mentioned earlier. Let's talk about the more severe elements quickly. There's more here, but I'd rather encourage you to read the entire 25-page document at this point. Sonic Omens had a lot of promise. It's simply a shame that the game isn't well designed, and then the shady nature of almost everything involved here, yeah, it makes me really want to give it the lowest possible score I can give it. And you know what? That is something I'll do. Congratulations, Sonic Omens! You're the first game to receive the Let It Fade rating. Hopefully this will be the last time the game will ever receive this rating. Anyway, I think it's about time I did something that I should have done from the start. Thank Christ, I don't have to deal with that anymore. Surprise! Bet you weren't expecting this, were you? We all know about this dysfunctional yellow-skinned family that spawned numerous memes and became a parody of itself from Season 8 onwards. What began in 1987 as animated shorts on The Tracy Ullman Show eventually evolved into the longest-running animated series of all time, outlasting the Flintstones. They were even bought by the House of Mouse during their run, and guess what? They predicted that. I guess predicting the future is a running theme throughout the show. Personally, I don't watch the show anymore, but the first few seasons are damn good. Dare I say, legendary. It's a shame Disney Plus didn't do those episodes justice at first. Either way, throughout their lifespan, they've had a theatrical film, comic books, hit songs, a ride at Universal Studios, Disney Plus specials after the Fox acquisition, and even video games as far back as the arcade, the Commodore 64, and even the ZX Spectrum. Around the 6th generation, they just kind of copied what was already popular. The Simpsons skateboarding was just a shittier Tony Hawk Pro Skater. The Simpsons Road Rage was just Crazy Taxi with a hint of patent infringement. And The Simpsons Hit Run, for today's video, was a kid-friendly Grand Theft Auto with my favorite piece of video game trivia ever, and uncanny character models. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, this game really didn't age well visually. That's colorful, I'll give it that, but these blank stares are really creeping me out. Seriously, what are these guys and gals looking at? One other thing I should mention, I'm emulating the GameCube version of Hit and Run via Dolphin. I played this game a lot back in the day, and the PS2 and GameCube versions were the ones I remember. Sadly, I no longer own those versions of the game, and I never owned the Xbox version, and to that I say, whoops. There is a PC version of the game that exists with crisp visuals and a smooth frame rate, but it has a couple issues. For one, boxed copies of the PC version go for $30 to $40 on Amazon. You're better off just straight up downloading it online. And no, I'm not gonna tell you where to find it. Do that yourself. And secondly, you're stuck with keyboard controls. Not keyboard and mouse controls, mind you. Keyboard controls. For a game that was made with dual analog sticks in mind. Yikes. Now, at least this version of the game has mod support. It's quite commendable, actually, but this means you will have to do some maintenance if you want to get the game playing in 2022. Either way you slice it, the game is very fun. Still is. The story is kind of like an actual episode of the show. It's pretty outlandish later on, especially when Kang and Kodos, the two aliens of the show, get involved. Basically, they just want to poison the water supply with a certain cola that'll cause people to go mad and kill each other, all for an intergalactic reality show. This is so outlandish, it's downright hilarious. The game is split into levels and missions. Each level is a different location in Springfield. Oh wait, did I say different location? I meant the same 3 locations at different times of the day, from level 4 onwards. Each level allows you to play as a different member of the family, except for level 5 where you get to play as Apu. Within each level, you can drive around in a car, collect these coins that the game gives out like candy, kill these giant wasp camera things to get more coins, collect these cards that are scattered throughout the level, do some extra missions, and kick a run over pedestrians, all to assert your dominance over the town of Springfield. Try not to go overboard because you may have a run-in with the cops. Though a lot of the times I make the cops chase me because the music that plays when you get a hit and run is so good. Some parts of the game haven't really aged well. The camera, for one, isn't the best. Sometimes I can get stuck on geometry, while other times you can get some less than desirable angles. Then there's the movement. It's fine, but your regular jogging speed is a bit too slow, and your sprinting speed allows you to zip, zap, and zoom all over the place, but your turning is very tank-like. The platforming is also very clunky and slippery, and often the platforms you have to jump on are very small, and some collectibles require you to do this platforming. At least the driving still feels good. Grippy, responsive, and oh so bouncy. There are also some secret cars you can buy with the coins you find, or there's some secret vehicles you can find in the level, like this monster truck in level 5 and this jet car in level 1. And yes, if you're a Simpsons fan, there's plenty of references from the show, from purchasable costumes for every playable character to the many gags you can come across.
Don't come in here. We're making sausage. Man sausages.
You know what? I'm not even gonna ask. Some costumes and cars are required for some missions, so make sure you save up those coins because they can get very expensive very quickly. This is also one of the easiest games to break. Seriously, a lot of them involve messing with cheats to get you out of bounds, but you can also use glitches to cheese and cheat certain missions, like Quick Cash and Curious Curator in level 5, that one was by complete accident, or Set to Kill in level 6, one of the hardest missions in the game, for good reason. This is where the no traffic glitch comes in handy. I highly recommend it. The game clocks in at around 10 to 13 hours. It's not short, and it's not too long either. However, if you just go from mission to mission without any of the side stuff, it can get quite repetitive due to the over-reliance on vehicle missions. But if you take your time and look for those cards, coins, coin boxes, wasp camera things, gags, or even just goofing off and breaking the game, That's where the fun really lies. True story, I remember clipping through a wall in the power plant on level 1 and ending up on Mr. Burns' property with human chess pieces. You normally don't have access to this until you reach level 4, but seeing this in level 1 and in broad daylight was oh so cool to kid me. If you couldn't tell, I have fond memories of this game. Is it a good game? Yes. Is it a good Simpsons game? Well, better than what was available at the time. And looking back, this is possibly the best Simpsons game we're ever gonna get. Dare I say it's on par with the Simpsons arcade game. I never played it, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. If you already own Hit and Run in some form or fashion, give it a shot. It's not a perfect game, but it's still a damn good time sink. And I feel like this is one of those games that really needs an official remaster, don't you think? Come on, Disney. You're really missing out. This is kind of a first for me.
Oh yeah, I'm going in raw.
I've heard of Geist in passing, but I never got to play it myself until a friend of mine said, why don't you take a look at it? I mean, it took longer than I thought, but hey, I finally got around to it. Developed by Nspace and published by the Big N themselves, yes, I'm not kidding, this was the second published Nintendo GameCube title to receive an M rating. I did try to find an actual physical copy of the game, but by looking at these prices, we had set fire to an actual spirit. None of that matters, because I'm busting out the emulator for this one. With the cost of GameCube titles rising all the time and emulators constantly improving, this is a fantastic option worth considering. Oh no. Yeah, playing the game on Dolphin is a little dodgy to say the least. It just keeps shitting the bed every few minutes after the opening. Keep in mind, I've changed every setting imaginable, and it just kept happening with no resolution. And whenever it would crash, I'd have to restart the emulator and just hope it was a fluke. And because the game only saves at specific checkpoints, I was sent back a fair bit, oftentimes restarting the entire damn chapter. And no, you can't skip the cutscenes on your first playthrough. Believe me, I tried. Keep in mind, the last game that I played on Dolphin worked flawlessly from start to finish. Honestly, I got so mad at the setbacks that I ended up using Nintendo on my modded Wii to play the game. And bought a Mayflash Wii to HDMI adapter so I could use my capture card on it. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I'm going to answer those questions right away. First off, I'm not paying for a game that's no longer being sold officially. More on that later. But the other question is, why use the Wii and not the Wii U? I just didn't feel like recording gameplay on a console that sounded more like an ambulance siren. Even if my Wii really needs one at this point. Anyway, let's try that again, and apparently the game supports progressive scan and widescreen? Well, this was around the time that was brand new, so guess I don't have to do a lot of editing here. I mean, this is good enough for me.
So that was a fucking lie.
You play as everyman John Raimi, who works for an agency known as CR2. The escape from their most recent mission went belly up after one of their soldiers goes AWOL and puts a bullet in his skull. Miraculously, he survives, but his soul gets sucked out. I mean, wasn't he just gonna be a soul either way? He's then saved by a ghost girl named Gigi after being placed in the Matrix. You then have to save your friend Bryson before he gets put into Horizon Worlds, reclaim your body, kill the bad guy plus monster, and escape. It is a very formulaic story that almost feels like a low-budget action B-movie from the 80s. I mean, the voice acting doesn't help with that either, but even if I didn't spoil the story, you could probably guess what's gonna happen, even with the added story elements, like villain origin story and the ghost girl. By the way, you've gotta save your buddy. How the hell are you gonna do that when you're just a soul? Or, as I like to call it, super naked.
Good grief, he's naked!
One word. Possession. You see, in order to possess anything in this game, they have to have a red aura around them. Certain objects have them no matter what, but with people and animals, you have to scare them first. It's sometimes like a mini puzzle, luring them to a specific spot just to scare them shitless, and honestly, that's brilliant. Once you possess them, you can utilize a specific ability that they have. I mean, some are more useless than others, but at least you have infinite ammo with guns and grenades when you possess anybody that can carry weapons. While you're in spirit form, time is slowed to a crawl. However, the longer you stay in that state, the faster your health will drain, so possessing anything with a red aura is a must. You can only live off of plants for so long after all, just like a real vegan. Though it does get old seeing the same unskippable possession animation over and over again, especially when you have to be very quick in a lot of situations. And get used to that animation, you'll be seeing it a lot. Also, be careful on who you kill, because if someone important dies, you're as good as dead and you have to reload at the last checkpoint. Don't repeat the same mistake I made 4,000 times. Though using a GameCube controller to play a first-person shooter is a bit strange, to say the least, it honestly kind of works when you get the hang of it. Look, I'm not saying it's the best way to play an FPS title, because it really isn't. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. It really is not the best way to play a first-person shooter. What the hell am I saying? Turning is slow and stiff, and aiming is a bit slippery, especially when headshots get involved. Oh, and you can't adjust this, so you're stuck with it. The pacing here is also a bit slower compared to something like Halo 2, which came out the year prior. And unlike Halo, the shooting is not the focus, which is a damn shame because, you know, it could have worked. You're just spending most of the game possessing stuff to solve little puzzles, and the shooting is just kind of there. This was also supposed to be Nintendo's response to Halo, but it got a little lost in the shuffle. At least I think so, anyway. And assuming you're just playing the game from start to finish, it's around like 8 hours, I want to say. Going after those collectibles, though, may double or possibly triple your playtime. There's two types of collectibles. Collectibles you have to collect as a ghost, and collectibles you have to collect with a human host. I didn't really bother with this because I only collected a few of them by complete accident. It's not that hard to find them, you just have to go off the beaten path. Nothing brain-taxing about that. Your reward is mostly stuff for the multiplayer mode, and judging from my basic Wikipedia research, it's as basic as it looks. And for a late GameCube title, it looks fine. Ish. Yeah, this game aged like milk, especially because it's using a retooled engine from the PlayStation 1. And this holds true for the voice acting as well. I mean, I briefly mentioned it earlier, but woo!
Get out. I don't want to give this scum any more bodies to possess. Contact Roar can tell him the situation's under control.
Come to think of it, I did mention the 80s movie cliche, but that's also apparent in the boss fights. Seriously, I'm spraying lead at Godzilla in these fights. It doesn't help that I'm fighting the same worm thing like a few times. In fact, I'd rather go all Rambo up in Godzilla's face rather than fighting that worm thing again. Also, the frame rate stutters constantly, and it gets worse when the action gets a bit too intense for the purple lunchbox to handle. Oh wait, I'm sorry, did I say purple lunchbox? I meant long red brick that screams. And that's similar to a P. However, despite all of that, it's a passable game. It's nothing but passable, but at least I had a pleasant time with the game once I switched over to the Wii. Oh, there was some bullshit moments, don't get me wrong. But I kept trucking along. I can see why it's a cult classic, but it's extremely dated nowadays. Hi, this is Green Boy from the future, who does not have a script, because I'm disclosing the fact that I did not finish Geist for this video. The technical problems were far more than just, you know, crashes and alerts and stuff like that. A good chunk of the footage was pretty much rendered unusable, and I really didn't bother fixing it. At that point, I had already switched to the Wii. And by the time I stopped playing, I had already seen everything that this game had to offer, and I really needed to get a move on and finish this video by the end of the month. Alright, now let's finish this video because it's running a little long right now. If you're gonna play this game, try to do it on real hardware if at all possible, whether it's via an ISO backup or the real disc. I mean, who am I to judge for the record? Besides, N-Space closed their doors in 2016, and Nintendo really isn't acknowledging the game themselves. So who's really gonna pocket the cash? Oh look, yet another trendy game YouTube loves to milk and is questionably for kids? What? I don't get it. Like, how the hell does that even work? I mean, seriously, there's some YouTube videos out there that have some really dark stuff, but because it has a kid's face on it, the kid's face icon for that matter, it's automatically labeled for kids. Come on, this is just some dumb shit. Yeah, he's gonna be ranting for a while, so I'm just gonna let him cool off. So, anybody remember Dance Dance Revolution? It's a rhythm game that requires insane coordination in order to master properly. Or do this kind of shit, I don't know, your choice I guess. Friday Night Funkin' is a DDR clone without the dance pad. Though it is possible to play without the dance pad, though with some songs, why would you want to put yourself through that? Either way, that's the easiest way I can describe it. That and I hear Parappa the Rapper a lot when I'm researching this game. Was that game any good anyway? All I will say is that the game's title is unfortunately one letter away from being an adult film, and that's why proper pronunciation is extremely important. Though someone has probably tried to capitalize on that, let's see. Oh. And that is why I will be abbreviating the game as FNF for the rest of this video. Don't let my stupidity deter you though, it is still a very decent game. It was created by a team of 4 Newgrounds users for a game jam, and not only did it start out as a Newgrounds game at first, but it was also credited with bringing folks back to the website at the time of its release. Going down memory lane for a few seconds here, I actually used to play all sorts of Flash games on Newgrounds as a kid, both at home and on those shitty computers from elementary school. You know, the ones that still use either Windows 98, XP, or 7. Yeah, the tech budget was not really a priority in my younger days. I wish I could take a look at some of them for a potential Rush Review episode, but Flash is dead now, killed by its own creator. What a shame. Back to FNF, the game has 2 modes, free play and story. Free play is pretty self-explanatory. Play any song in the game for a high score. Moving on. The story is split into weeks. Weeks 1 to 6 are available via the itch.io website and download, with week 7 being a timed exclusive on Newgrounds. And it's not even being timed anymore because week 7 is still on Newgrounds. Oh, and that version is also a completely different build, so some stuff may differ from the latest itch.io build. Just thought I'd mention that now. Most of the characters you face off against are original, mostly because this blue-haired kid is trying to get along with this girl's family. At least that's what I think the plot is, I'm not so sure. I guess he didn't pass the family's vibe check? Dear God, this household is fucking brutal. But if you're familiar with Newgrounds in any way, you'll feel right at home with some of your opponents. If you've never played this game before, you just have to hit the corresponding direction when the arrow hits the end of this highway right here. The better your timing, the better your score. If you miss too many notes, then you fail. Failing is very easy to do since playing the game with the WASD or arrow keys by default is super friggin' awkward, and the game itself is all kinds of jank. Okay, well I guess I nailed that. And though the backgrounds are very lovely, they can sometimes be very busy, making it very hard to see oncoming arrows sometimes. That happens to me more often than you think. Looking at you, week 4. Ah, crap, this isn't really going too well for me. The kid gets blue-balled when he fails? I'm sorry, but how is this made for kids again? Don't even get me started on the names of some of these songs, Mama's curvy physique, Papa's bare hairy chest, Senpai wanting to rip my nuts off, and whatever the fuck these things are. Oh, and how can I forget about Pico, the living school shooter joke? And if you think I'm making shit up, they flat out fucking say that in week 7.
Ah, look who it is, your sexually ambiguous, angry little friend. Don't you have a school to shoot up?
In the eyes of a corporate YouTube executive... yes, this is definitely suitable for kids. This shit's weird. I do recommend playing on an easier difficulty if you're new to the game, because some of the charting can get pretty insane. Thankfully, you don't have to worry about being flawless. It's similar to guitar battles in Guitar Hero without the dedicated items. Just don't let your opponent's icon here reach your side and you're fine. The game is easy to pick up, but very hard to master, and I think it does that very well, even if the difficulty curve can be a bit steep depending on the song. The soundtrack itself, though, is the best thing about this game, next to its visuals and art style. Week 6 even has a completely different art style, and it doesn't just change the characters and backgrounds, but it also changes the UI and sound quality. Nice touch. At least I can actually see the arrows here. Though some of the songs sound like complete noise, others are quite groovy, and I honestly can't get them out of my head. Some of my personal favorites include Gettin' Funky, Tutorial, Fresh, Dad Battle, South, Pico, Blamed, Coco, all the songs from week 7. Now, those are glorified bangers right there. There's even a ton of mods for the game if you've mastered the base game tracks. And since the source code is available on GitHub, this is one of the fastest growing modding scenes I've ever seen for a video game. And oh yeah, there's plenty to choose from. Some draw-dropping, some average, and some top-tier garbage. Heh, sounds just like Skyrim. I couldn't play all the mods, let alone some of the most popular ones, so I'll leave a link in the description below to the ones that I've actually played. It's a pity that my dexterity was complete garbage and I am man enough to confess that. However, the game can only be modded with the itch.io or GitHub download, unless there's an exploit on Newgrounds or with HTML5 that I'm completely unaware of. Most of them are separate executables, so you don't have to worry about replacing files for the most part. Just make sure you scan them before playing. Just saying. And one more thing. After the Newgrounds exclusive week 7, you get a teaser for the game's Kickstarter page called Friday Night Funkin' the Full-Ass Game. First off, great title. Miles better than this shit. And as of this video, it has over 58,000 backers and raised over $2 million. So suffice it to say, it's a big success. I only hope with the money raised, they can fix a lot of the jank that this game has, and become the next Shovel Knight and not Mighty Number 9, if you catch my drift. Honestly, like, what hasn't been said about this game, you know? It's only been out for 2 years as of this video, but it felt like one of those cult classic games from the golden age of Newgrounds, you know? And you know, now that I think about it, screw it. Give it a shot. It might be a bit janky at points, but it's still very damn fun. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to try it out. I do recommend the Newgrounds or the GitHub build for the added polish, but at least it's a free game, so your wallet can at least take a bit of a break for the time being. Well, until all these games come out. The Kickstarter is also linked in the description below if you want to donate to it. Let me end this video by reading one of my favorite lines from said Kickstarter page with zero context. Tom Follop is emotional support. He made Newgrounds and has a penis. We're not sure if it's large or small since we've never seen it, but as the team motto goes, never say never. You know, in my 2 years of making Rush reviews and my 23 years of life, I never thought I'd be reading that sentence with my very own 2 lips. Oh, that's right. I forgot about him. Let me just. Hey, look at this. It's a new Sonic game, and it's not a complete piece of shit. Okay. By the way, before we continue, if my voice sounds off, this is why. TLDR, I possibly contracted COVID, and I'm not taking any chances, even in my own goddamn home. By the way, we're November the 8th, and the game just came out, so I am going to keep spoilers to a minimum. It's a shame content creators have that scrubbed from their mental dictionary. I will give you tips from what I discovered so far, and the first tip is don't get the deluxe edition like I did. I paid 105 Canadian dollars for this after tax, and what you see here is what you get. Also, I'm still waiting on my damn soap shoes. I signed up for that newsletter yesterday. Either way, I was actually really looking forward to this game, though my excitement would later become cautious optimism when the first gameplay trailer was shown, and when IGN started showing gameplay. I mean, what do you expect? They never liked Sonic. However, when critics actually enjoyed the game, YouTubers actually enjoyed the game, and then of course the Tyson Hess-directed Sonic Frontiers prologue, Divergence, dude, my excitement came back, and since Bayonetta 3, Modern Warfare 2, and Overwatch 2 had some issues, I was like, I'll bite. And I'm glad I did, because this game isn't that bad. In fact, it's really good. I did encounter some jank though. I mean, seriously, what game isn't janky on day one? But thankfully, it's not as bland as Sonic Forces and not a broken dumpster fire like Sonic 06 and Rise of Lyric. So that's gotta be an accomplishment for a game released in 2022, right? There are some things you're gonna have to, you know, get used to. For one, the homing attack is on a separate button like in Sonic Unleashed. And yeah, I played Sonic Unleashed for the first time a while back, the HD version anyway. So it was weird going back to this. And also the boost is on one of the triggers. It almost reminds me of the Infinity Engine to a degree, but in this case, it's a lot slower than the Infinity Engine, so make of that what you will. In terms of how Sonic controls, I absolutely love how customizable this is. You want to have him do some little donuts like I did? You can do that. You want to have him turn like very tankily like he did in Generations and Unleashed? You can do that too. It's all in the options setting. Though here's the thing, when you first boot the game up, you have to choose between action style and high speed style. Go for high speed style because action style is very unbearable. At least you can go into the settings and change it at any time, so it's no loss there, right? However, the way the open world is handled, it's a bit interesting to say the least. Now, in order to unlock more portions of the map, you have to clear these little challenges, and the moment you do that, you unlock more of the map. Small chunks, but eventually you'll uncover the entire map, and you'll be able to go from point A to point B, lickety-split, without any problems. You are going to have to do some exploring, and honestly, this game does that pretty well. I mean, seriously, going off the beaten path and discovering a collectible, or a stash of collectibles, and then getting a bunch of them at once, like, dude, it's satisfying. There's also a lot of shit you gotta collect, and I mean, like, a metric butt-ton of shit. Seriously, you have to collect these character-specific items in order to save your friends, and of course, you gotta collect these keys in cyberspace levels, which just reuse 3 themes, with the occasional 4th theme that I have not seen yet. And of course, you gotta use those keys to get a Chaos Emerald. But then, of course, there's also quests, and some of them reward you with a Chaos Emerald. Okay, then. Then there's more shit you gotta collect that increases Sonic's speed and defense if you give it to this Elder here. And also, you gotta find these concrete kokiris in order to, I don't know, do something? I don't know what they do, but hey, I at least amassed an army of them, and you can't stop me. The game also showers you with experience points when you start defeating enemies, so you'll be able to get a lot of these little perks for the Hedgehog in no time flat, and maybe a couple upgrades, I don't know, I still haven't made it that far to even figure that out. And then there's fishing with Big the Cat, I almost forgot about that. You will need to spend a purple coin if you want to fish, but it's at least optional. And there's also some goodies you can get with these little fishing tokens that you can also get. Also, apparently the real-life parallels of littering in the ocean are still a thing here on Starfall Islands, because I found a goddamn spring. Like, what the hell was that doing in there? And of course, when it comes to the story, though I won't summarize it, I'm legitimately engaged, so that's at least a positive. Now, of course, if you do plan to play this game, I will say this now, wait for a sale at some point. Mostly because the pricing for some of this shit, it's very hard to swallow. But you know what? If you want to do that, then fine. I recommend the PC version of the game so that you can get on top of that inevitable modding scene, because Lord knows what modders can do when given the right tools. So yeah, if you want to play the game, then just go for it, man. I'm not going to stop you. This has to be by far one of the strangest detours ever. Wii Music is a part of the Wii series of games, starting with the pack-in title Wii Sports, and this was one of the more divisive games in said series, for actually very good reason. I know I'm jumping the gun a bit here, but screw it. What am I supposed to do in this situation? Like, just look! Like, what else do you want me to say? As for me, I remembered really enjoying this one when I was younger. Looking at the old replays from 2013 to 2015, yeah, I certainly had my fun. Around the time I started playing the game, I was really into the Rock Band and Guitar Hero franchise. And I was even playing the drums at this point in my life. The real deal, not those fragile plastic pads with no cymbals. Of course, when I first played the game, I immediately realized this was not your usual rhythm game, because some components are purposefully hidden from you when performing an actual song. The game pushes you to improvise, but if you're someone who wants to try to, play along note for note to alter the tone of a song, yeah, this is where the game gets a bit lost, predictably. That is both a compliment and a critique. Control-wise, yeah, they work in theory, and that's when you're not using the motion controls, since they register an extra input for some baffling reason, and the controls, in general, feel super delayed. And for a rhythm game like this, that's actually really bad. Some of the instruments don't even need the nunchuck. You could just press the 1 and 2 buttons while pretending you're the epic sax guy on crack. Combine many of these problems with the most ridiculous instrument selection available, and many of the songs become Beethoven on LSD. In other words, a complete shit show. Speaking of songs, aside from a few Nintendo tracks sprinkled in, they're all the most basic stuff you can think of. Some of the songs here would later become memes, and honestly, that's funny to me. The game is far more than just playing music to make a sketchy mixtape. There are little mini-games you can play that are a bit more conventional for a rhythm game, like becoming Discount John Williams, or using bells like you're in an elementary school band, or simply playing a matching game that tests your musical ear. That one was kind of boring, actually. And since the controls are very delayed for the first two, it makes things sound very off. I mean, some of it was my fault, I'll give you that. I know, being the bell guy is fucking boring. The game also contains lessons and... oh dear God, okay. When you first boot the game up, you're thrown into a tutorial. It gives you the basics on every instrument type in the game, and shows you how other things work in the game. However, if you want to unlock everything in this game, you have to complete all of the jam mastery lessons, with each musical style in the game having both a basic and advanced lessons. I hope you like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, because that's all you're gonna hear. At least I can make it 10 times worse by wearing this. Here's all the button combos for this. Enjoy. Oh, I almost forgot. The game has Wii Balance Board support. I didn't really bother to get my old balance board working for this video, but it's actually quite simple. Do you want to play the drums with very convoluted and very delayed motion controls? Shockingly enough, while researching this game, I found out there's a small modding scene for the game. Wii Music is one of my personal guilty pleasure games. You know, the ones I'd play for a few hours alone or with friends, if you're that guy, and then put it down and watch it collect dust. I at least had fun every single time I picked the game up. Mostly because butchering well-known or public domain songs is just very amusing to me. What kind of crack was I smoking to think that this was a good idea? If you consider Wii Music as a joke game, then sure, It was a success. Remove the comedy and possibly the LSD, and you have the most average game that went down in the Wii's history as either a fart in the wind or one of the worst things on the Wii. Seriously, this sloppy rendition of the Super Mario Bros. Theme was intended to impress folks at E3 2008. Can you tell that it didn't work? It makes my rendition look like a masterpiece, and for Wii music standards, that's pretty low. I'll rate the game an average, but ignoring the rating system for a bit, try it out only if you're very curious. From what I've seen, physical copies online are dirt cheap, so you won't be breaking the bank if you want to play it, thankfully. At least it's cheaper than LSD. Damn, this demo actually flew under my radar. I saw this on Twitter and I was just like, dude, this is cool. But once I saw it on Steam, I immediately remembered, oh, I forgot there's a demo. I saw it just before the Game Awards and said, I've got time. Right now we're December the 9th, and I'm hoping that this will come out on the 10th. So I'm hoping this comes out tomorrow. Anyway, when I booted the game up, I just kind of started messing around with the settings. And don't flick the audio buffer below 10 milliseconds because it becomes a horror flick when you do so. That gave me a legit spook. All right, let's just talk about the gameplay real quick. It is pretty much rhythm heaven, with quality of life additions that make this an overall better experience. That's all I can say. And in terms of exposure to the Rhythm Heaven series, my only true exposure, I want to say, was the DS game. In fact, that was the one that I played the most. I don't remember much of Fever, and I've never played the 3DS one. Was it like Mega Hits or something? I don't know. I'll have to look that up later. But yeah, the gameplay is pretty much Rhythm Heaven. There are a total of 3 levels in this demo: Flipper Snapper, Hammer Time, and Meet and Tweet. Each uses the A button. You can play these as many times as you want, and it really shouldn't take you that long to finish, because they're all very bite-sized. I mean, visually, I am falling in love with this 2D art style. And the music also slaps as well. I mean, it slaps so hard that I legit forgot how to play the game on the occasion. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention one quality of life thing that I actually really like, and it's the fact that you can skip the tutorial by pressing B on these title cards here. So if you, say, are replaying the stages again for a higher score, which you can do, yeah, it makes it a hell of a lot faster compared to just waiting for it to load, waiting for the tutorial to come up, and then skipping it manually, or the fact that the game just holds your hand and just forces you into the tutorial. And like I said earlier, the demo is not really that long. My first recording clocked in at 16 minutes, while my second recording to get a higher score was essentially 12 minutes. And for a game that's in its alpha stages, I didn't really encounter any performance issues or debilitating bugs. I mean, your mileage may vary depending on the hardware. Again, it's an alpha. But from what I've played, it is responsive and it just works. If you like what you see here, then yeah, I'll leave a link in the description to the demo, as well as the Kickstarter page in case you want to back this project. Oh yeah, I recommend this. As a guy who's enjoyed Rhythm Heaven in the past, I've given this my thumbs up. That's all I'm gonna say. This was possibly the strangest game of 2022. It came out in September, and honestly, I didn't start playing it until the end of this year. I think what made it worse was the fact that a few games that released this year kind of just slid by under my radar without a whisper. Look, I know it's been memed to death on the internet, but you know what? I'm just gonna throw in my own opinions in this bitch. Off the bat, I'm just gonna say this now. Trombone Champ certainly has a sense of humor, from the characters you meet to even other aspects of the game that made me smile or laugh. And I'm not talking about the regular haha kind of laugh, I'm talking the full-on ugly laugh. The sound of the trombones also made me laugh the most, especially with this game's song selection. Oh my god. It's like Wii Music's song selection, with a mix of public domain tracks and some well-known tracks sprinkled in. More songs were even added via free patches. But hey, at least I can butcher God Save the King and my own national anthem with toots and not have a care in the world. Maybe throw in a little bit of alcohol, but I don't need that when I'm already off my rockers without it. Oh, Canada, our home and native political screw-ups. In terms of gameplay, it's basically just try to play the notes perfectly for a high score. Reminds me of another game that I've been seeing a lot of. I'm running a blank on the name of it, so please let me know. The better you do, the more toots you get. And yes, that is the name of this game's fictional currency. And I'm gonna go out and say this now, there is 0 microtransactions in this game. You get these by just playing the game. You can get these toots on the toot vessel to get more tromboners and trombones to use. And yes, trombone players are called tromboners. Laugh. You can even get different sounds for your trombone. These toots can also be used to get trading cards. Look, I know I'm late to the Pokemon TCG meta craze, whatever that thing was, but it was funny when I decided to channel in my inner dickhead and just, acted like an annoying, obnoxious YouTuber just for shits and giggles.
Like, oh my god, guys, here it is. I finally got him, the legend himself, the Blue Eyes White Baboon.
Aside from that, I just described the whole game to you. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. I mean, there is a story to this game, but I honestly thought it was so funny that I really want you guys to see it for yourself. Honestly, I don't know what else to add. I really don't want to have another Team Sonic Racing video on my hands. And you guys know how short that was. So, let's see, there's a free improv mode that allows you to do whatever you want. Yeah, I just extended the video by a few seconds just by mentioning that. This was also the mode where I discovered that there's a breath meter. Yeah, you can't hold your breath forever, just like a real tromboner. There's even mod support, and honestly, holy crap, this is crazy. Damn, Unity, you're quite the powerhouse. Just like Wii Music, if you want to butcher well-known songs without a care in the world, now you can. This is pretty much one of those games that's very easy to pick up, but very difficult to master. And so many of these songs are gonna put you to the test. And with how the game looks, you wouldn't even assume that. It's a kiddie-looking game that won't hesitate to kick your ass. It's honestly a really fun game. And you know what? I'm just gonna say this now. Give it a shot, just play it, But only in bursts, since the gameplay loop can get pretty repetitive after a few hours. And with all the stuff you can unlock, along with all the trading cards you can collect, there's like 50 of them, yeah, you're gonna be at it for a bit. It's also one of the cheaper indie games I know of, running at $15 to $17. So if you want to get it at that price, be my guest. I bought the game during my little Christmas winter sale splurge, and honestly, at $13, that was a steal. Hey, look, it's an electric Jester. Okay, that actually sounded wrong. First take of 2023, woo! Okay, well, I originally had in the script, if you've ever played a Sonic game, and but why do I have to ask that? It's literally just Sonic the Hedgehog, but with an electric Jester instead of a hedgehog. I mean, granted, that's a gross oversimplification of Sparks the Electric Jester, but his inspirations are as clear as day. After finishing the third game, which was gifted to me a while back, I decided to give this electric Jester the special treatment and look at all 3 of his games. Yes, there are 3 of these sons of bitches, and I'm gonna play them all. Anyway, on with the first game, released in 2017. Okay, give me a quick second here. We first boot into the basic tutorial, and then the game says, best of luck, bitch, time for you to deal with this joker. Control-wise, he's pretty easy to grasp. He can run, jump, wall jump, dash for a small burst of speed, attack, and that's about it. The way momentum works in this game specifically is a bit strange. The Jester can pick up a lot of speed, but loses it just as quickly when running up walls or slopes. And that gets extra deflating when you have those sections where the physics just go to town. Like, look at this! As a Sonic fan, I just got blue-balled. And I played Sonic 4! I also noticed his jumps are pretty damn heavy and platforming is pretty slippery. And that's when you aren't using a power-up that gives you buttery feet. Oh wait, I almost forgot, this game actually does have combat and power-ups. On the power-up side, there's plenty of them, but you can only equip one and switch to a reserve power-up with the push of a button. I mostly just stuck with the Knight ability because it was so versatile. Though my favorite power-up in the entire game goes to the board ability because of the amount of speed you can pick up. Like, god damn! It's a shame I lost it because I would have carried it to the end of the game. How did I lose it? Well, there you go. Yes, you can lose your power-ups if you take too much damage similar to Kirby, and it is the freaking worst when it does happen. On the combat side, it's really nothing that special. Press or mash the button for a regular attack, hold the button for a charged attack. That itself is different depending on the power-up you have equipped. There's even boss fights that turn the game into a complete slap fest, though they will kick your sorry ass into the ground if you aren't careful. At least Spark can take some punishment before he kicks the bucket, which is very easy to do near the tail end of the game. Level 15 does not know the meaning of the word mercy. Let's bring out a checklist. Enemies that swarm you, slow vertical platforming, getting hit by shit you can't see off screen, those goddamn nukes with the annoying blast radius, not many power-ups, meaning you aren't getting another one if you lose it, stupidly fast boss with no health bar to track your progress, very little health when restarting a checkpoint. It's all here, ladies and gentlemen! I got up to the boss before the final boss before calling it quits. I'm sorry, but there's only so much bullshit I can take, even if you do have infinite lives. Maybe I'll finish it in my spare time, I don't know, and to be honest, I just want to get a move on for this video. This face says everything that can be said about this damn nightmare. At least the game looks pretty nice and colorful, and the environments look pretty good too. The animations on Spark himself, well, they do a good job, but I really do wish the looking up sprite didn't look like a stoic orgasm face on the occasion. The soundtrack also slaps, though some tracks are a bit short and a bit too atmospheric to remember, but aside from that, it's really good. The game is still very fun, no doubt about it, but it really does feel like a first attempt. A damn good first attempt, no doubt about it. Thankfully, the 2D blueprint would later be refined in the next game. Wait a damn second! He already made the jump to 3D? Damn, bro. Okay. No need to gloat in front of the Hedgehog now. And that took him, like, what, 3 or 4 attempts? So, yeah, released 1 year later, Sparks makes his jump to 3D. Oh, wait, hang on. We're not even playing as the Jester this time around. We're playing as his metal doppelganger introduced in the first game. And yes, his name is Fark. Fuck. Okay, looking at this title screen, I didn't realize I'd be teasing my Shadow the Hedgehog review so soon. And also, why does this title screen remind me of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance? Jumping into the tutorial, and okay, this is way more familiar to me. It's probably because the third game is still fresh in my mind and this was their first jab at the 3D formula. Not helping matters was the fact that these levels arrived in the third game via free patch a while back, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Fark can perform everything Spark could, but now in 3D. But this time around, he has something akin to Sonic's spin dash and homing attack. Oh, and don't forget about the dash downwards, which is a very easy way to get your feet planted onto the ground when you catch some sick air, dude. At least he can fall forever in this game, unlike the third game, where you only have a few seconds before you bite the bullet. He can also hold on to 4 power-ups, which can be switched out with the D-pad. They can either be found within levels or purchased within shops. There's less here than in the first game, but hey, they all have their uses. Heck, these crystal-looking things from the first game, yeah, they have a use this time around. It's currency to buy these power-ups. This even holds true for the third game too, though for this game specifically you can only buy power-ups, maybe a couple items here and there, and some concept art. That's about it, really. Oh yeah, and remember when I mentioned Edgy the Hedgie earlier? One of his power-ups gives him Shadow's rocket shoes. It looks like the same make and model too. He even skates like him when they're equipped too. I guess they took the same ice skating class or something. There's also large amounts of verticality in these levels. Large buildings, vast environments, and if you're keen on exploring, you can even find some extra items too. You can even get these medals if you clear certain stipulations, but the game doesn't tell you about those stipulations at first, since I actually managed to get 2 of them by complete accident. I think it's mostly time trial stuff. I don't know. The bosses also got a bit of a glow up this time around. Since they're all within these spacious arenas and all you gotta do is beat the shit out of them, it kinda reminds me of Bayonetta in some way. Just like the first game, it's still a game of happy slaps, but with shields, parries, and the right power-up, they go down like a bitch. This even extends to these bounty hunters that want to kill Fark for a paycheck, and even the final boss. Okay, fine, I may have been careless a few times, but nothing was stopping me from trying again when I die because Fark has infinite lives just like last time. The game still looks nice though. It's easy to control and the sense of speed is really damn good. That sense of speed would be topped by the third game, which was released in August of last year. Spark is back to being the focus this time around, and if you aren't familiar with the plot, because you probably jumped into this game without playing the other two, don't worry, Sparks has you covered after the first stage, and that first stage is a driving section. Wait, what? Okay then. At least the driving controls feel great, and that's actually a really damn good looking car. Must have spent his entire paycheck on it. You can still use this currency that you find within the levels to buy upgrades, power-ups, and Jester powers, unless you play New Game Plus, in that case they're downright worthless. And if you're going to do the time trial stuff or are planning to fully complete the game, some of the power-ups and Jester abilities might be more useful than others. And since there's a lot of them, you won't be able to try them all out in a single playthrough. Though I wouldn't recommend sleeping on the power-ups and abilities anyway because the right ones can snap the game in half. Combine that with the parry system and combo meter, and it's a very good way to dish out even more of this game-breaking pain, particularly towards bosses, who are way more aggressive this time around. Don't worry, a good ass whooping will usually scare them straight. I did mention this earlier, but the sense of speed here in the third game is mind-blowing. And what makes 3 better than 2 in my eyes is the game's equivalent to the Lightspeed Dash. You pick up so much speed with it, like look at him go! The level also does a pretty good job accommodating for this level of speed as well, except a few regular levels where I didn't use the car because it's more fun that way, and the final level before the final boss. Not only does this level specifically drag on, but you have limited lives, and you have to finish it in one sitting. The lives, though, aren't really that big of an issue if you do the extra stages. It's mostly just side objectives like get to the goal before time runs out, collect these blue medals scattered across the stage before time runs out, the basic get to the goal objective, or get this many points to proceed. I actually really didn't like this one because it really shits on the game's pace. Well, I recommend playing all those levels anyway because, hey, that's more lives for the final gauntlet. I'm just gonna say this now. These games are damn fun. Are they perfect? Hell no. I encountered a fair bit of jank in all 3 games, like me falling through the floor in the first game, physics giving up in the second game, and shit like this in the third game. In fact, I actually encountered way more jank in the third game than the other 2 combined. Look, the developers aren't at fault here. I just have a strange relationship with jank. I still recommend playing these games if you like Sonic and thought Frontiers was disappointing, to which I say fucking what? Oh yeah, I also forgot to cover the story in these games. They get the job done. The first 2 are pretty simple stories, but the third game is very guilty of lore dumping, and poor Sparks got mindfucked near the end of the game. Hang in there, man, your time is almost up. At least if you're not interested in the lore, you can skip it, so that's a positive. Alright, so what's my personal tier list for these games? The first game's alright, bullshit excluded. The second game is worth a try, and the third game, that's a must-play, jank and all. Well, I do recommend you give all 3 games a shot anyway because they're very inexpensive and are still fun in their own way. Is this the peak of high-speed platforming everyone says it is? Well, that's up to you. I really don't want to place unnecessary pressure on the dev team, which in this case is one friggin' dude. One thing is certain though, I am getting sick of Friday Night Funkin', and I think you know why. Remember that brief time frame where everyone wouldn't shut up about this game? I remember seeing some of the teasers and trailers for this game, but Stray still ended up slipping under my radar. After hearing about all the positive acclaim months after release, I thought to myself, okay, if people love this game and was nominated for like every award under the sun, then it should be good, right? Short answer, it's fine. You play as a cat that's trying to get back to its pack after getting separated, and just to spoil this now, we never see them after the opening. Along the way, you meet a little robot with a bad case of amnesia going by B12, and with this little guy acting like a mini drone-sized smartphone and death machine for only 1 chapter, you start to learn a bit more about a world that has robots, 0 organic humans, and these little head crab thingies that can easily outnumber you if you are not running constantly. Yes, in case it wasn't obvious enough, you're in control of a pussy. You can run fast, jump to high places, scratch things, meow to your heart's content, take a cat nap, and screw with physics and logic for absolutely no reason. Just like real cats. There's also a few moments where it just kind of feels like I'm driving this cat all over the place, with how slippery the movement feels sometimes. This also means I get to pull off Ultra Instinct bullshit like this. The game primarily focuses on world building and exploration with some light environmental puzzles, which isn't really a bad thing, but that's kind of all it has going for it. The cat is literally just here for the ride. You are technically railroaded to a degree, meaning you're never lost, but there's also a bunch of stuff hidden off the beaten path, like memories for B12, items needed to progress in certain chapters, and a paper bag you can put on your head that reverses your controls. Why would you want to do this? I don't know, for an achievement, I guess? You don't have to finish the game with all the memories. By the time I finished, I had like over half of them collected, I think. Look, I really, really want to like this game more, but it just feels very lost at times. Let me explain. You guys remember these thingies? Yeah, they vanish after a certain point in favor of the drones that can kill you instantly if they get a good shot on you. Most of my deaths came from those thingies, and oh, look at that, I got an achievement for dying more than 9 times. How clever. There's also no map, so you're gonna have to explore these areas and memorize them. Unfortunately, these areas feel very identical from one another, meaning memorizing some of these areas are not an easy thing to do. Half the time I end up running in circles going, where the fuck was that specific place again? Not helping matters is the less than desirable camera angle because of how boxed in some of these areas feel. If a middle ground was met between the size of these worlds, yeah, I'd be singing a different tune. Then there's the lore, which, yeah, is good, but you're a cat who can't speak English and needs Google Translate over here. Just feels like an excuse to inform the cat while also informing the player. It honestly just doesn't feel very graceful to me. And I've played games with less graceful lore delivery. The fact this game was nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards was nothing short of confusing to me. I'm willing to go a little easier on it, seeing as this was the very first title developed by Blue 12 Studios, and that deserves nothing but respect in my books. Their publisher, Annapurna Interactive, on the other hand, published a wide range of indie games, like Neon White, which, fun fact, came out a month before this game did. Guess what got more attention? I will say this though. The environments look beautiful, the writing is really good, the soundtrack is phenomenally atmospheric, though I really don't remember much of it, and the attention to detail is certainly nothing to scoff at. This right here is what immediately came to mind for me. It was so funny. Ask yourself this. If you replaced the cat with something or someone else, what would this game be? I'll tell you. It's a generic third-person adventure puzzle game that has 12 chapters and clocks in at 5 to 6 hours. It's nothing groundbreaking, but at least I had a bit of fun with the game, and my time didn't feel wasted. But for me, it's a one-and-done kind of game, and it's $40. Yeah, might as well wait for a sale. It's only available on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC via Steam, but all versions are almost identical, so it's a case of picking what's most convenient to you. I recommend the PC version for the mods, and there's plenty of them on Nexus Mods. Wait, hold on a second. What's Simon doing here? Well, I guess he didn't read the contract on the way in, and oh dear God, he's so big you can see him from across the map, he has telekinesis, and he multiplied since Skylanders! Oh dear God, Simon, cut that shit out. Dude, you're better than this. So, confession time. This is the first skateboarding game I've ever played. I'm not familiar with the sport as a whole, but in the gaming sector, I've never played the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, their spin-offs, the Skate Trilogy, nada. Nope, not even the previous Olli games, which, by the way, there's 3 of them. None of that matters, as we go from realistically drawn humans in pixel art to something that wouldn't be too out of place in an episode of Adventure Time. I'm serious. That's literally the first thing I thought of the moment I laid eyes on these character designs. I mean, the game did come out 4 years after Adventure Time ended, so maybe this was a coincidence and not a way to capitalize on what the show left behind? I don't know. It also appears that a publisher change occurred behind the scenes. The first 2 games were published by Devolver Digital, with this game being published by Private Division, a subsidiary of Take-Two Interactive, primarily dedicated to publishing indie titles. Alright, enough lollygagging, let's just get into the game proper. Alright, let me just get this out of the way real quick. Yeah, fine, I'll sell my soul to Take-Two. I thought I already did that when I played GTA Online. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there is a story to this game, and it hits you the moment you start the game. A skate wizard nearing retirement is trying to find a replacement. To spoil this now, it's you. You're the next skate wizard. Sure, there's some lore attached to the game, such as being on an island called Skatelandia, where everything can be skated on, and how skate wizards, who are extremely rare, bring balance to Nirvana above and humans below. Yes, I said Nirvana, not Nirvana, I know what I said. Same with the writing, though most of it is just skate terminology and puns. And a lot of it flew over my head because I barely know any sort of skate terminology. I'm only familiar with the basics. And I'm talking the bare essentials. Control-wise, it is super unorthodox. Your movement is on rails, pardon the pun, and you press the A button to skate forward and flick the analog stick in any direction to perform a basic trick. You can also pull off grabs with the right stick and spin left or right with the triggers while airborne, grind on rails by holding the left stick in any direction on the rail, which applies to wall riding as well, and you switch paths with the X button on the few occasions you can do so with these arrows on the ground. Simple, right? Well, one quick look at the Trictionary and you'll soon realize it's like the Smash Brothers Shotos plus Kazuya mixed into one. Every trick in the game is on a separate direction on the analog stick, and sometimes you'll need to use both analog sticks in order to perform more tricks. That part mostly applies to the rails. More advanced tricks also require you to move the analog stick in such a way it feels like you're playing Street Fighter. You'll also have to worry about timing your button presses for better score and better speed, because you'll have to make sure you're going fast enough to either get to a specific path you want to get to, or clear bottomless pits. And given the many do-or-die situations the game is littered with, especially later in the game, yeah, you're gonna be airborne a lot. The game is about keeping the pace going on a linear path, while also doing as many tricks as possible to get a high score. Though your goal is to clear the stage normally and optionally do it without using a checkpoint, the higher your score is at the end of your run, the better, since beating these high scores here nets you cosmetics for your character. In fact, cosmetic items for your character is kind of the only reward you get. Clearing stage-specific challenges also nets you cosmetics, and don't worry, once you unlock them, you don't have to do it again. Thank God. If I had to do them in one turn, I'd cry. If you replay previous stages, rivals will start to appear. And if you're connected to the internet, that rival is going to be another player. You won't be racing said rival, thank God, you just have to beat their score. And you know what? I like this. Because let's face it, if this were a race, new players are going to get their asses handed to them by players who pretty much know every single pathway and shortcut that can be taken in a given stage. What do you get out of this? I don't know, bragging rights, I guess? This game is not meant for those who want a pleasant stroll on their skateboard. Your reflexes, timing, knowledge of a given course layout, and let's face it, your patience will be tested. And if one of these aren't up to code, you aren't getting very far in this game, especially when these high scores are involved. You might be able to beat all 3 of these scores in a given stage easily, but they get stupidly strict later on. It's like, what the fuck? You're gonna be dealing with a lot of this pixel perfect bullshit sometimes. And most of it comes from the do or die situations I mentioned earlier, and most of those are directly in your path. Ain't no way he's walking that shit off. And for as beautiful and stylish as the game is, there's no depth of field, making depth perception an absolute bitch. I had to start over what felt like an immeasurable amount of times on some stages, mostly because of that clear without using a checkpoint goal. I know, I'm stubborn. At least the ragdoll physics make every injury funnier than they should be. My character did backflips in the sand, slammed into walls, drowned in water, or this wax Gwyneth Paltrow uses for those candles that smell like her put, fell into the void, and my personal favorite, blasted off into space. My character's not even wearing a helmet, so this knockoff Canuck over here is definitely getting what's coming to him. And yeah, you can customize your character to how you see fit. I don't know why the game gave me this Blue Man Group wannabe at first, but at least you can fully change your character at any time. It's a very basic character creator, but it does get the job done. I just wish there were a few more hairstyles to choose from. Does the DLC mitigate that by any chance? I have no idea because I only bought the base game. According to HowLongToBeat.com, the game's like 5.5 hours long if you don't go for everything. But completionists are probably gonna have a very miserable time because what you see here is literally the entire game. Thing is, I haven't finished the game yet. I made it midway through sketch side before calling it quits, at a point where I was really starting to feel burnt out. The pixel perfect bullshit will do that to you. And you gotta do this for like 5 worlds? Not counting Nirvana? Jesus Christ. And I doubt the DLC will change anything, really. I feel like this kind of game works well on a portable device, like the Nintendo Switch or the Steam Deck. But on a plop your ass down console or full PC setup, I personally do not recommend it. It is repetitive as sin. Though it might be repetitive, I would be lying if I said I didn't have fun with the game. I'm serious, this game is like really friggin' fun, excluding the bullshit. It is really addicting to try to beat your own high score as well as your rival's high score once you actually start replaying stages. It's a very arcadey game, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with a little bit of arcadey fun every now and again. Though the controls will take a bit of getting used to. I mean, seriously, I fell on my ass more times than I could count. But you'll soon be doing all sorts of flippy shit with the analog stick like you're trying to play high-level Street Fighter or Tekken in no time flat. The game is available on pretty much everything, although $30-40 is a little bit steep for what you're getting. I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately. At least it's better than the game's deluxe edition. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I mean the red edition that comes with the DLC, all 2 of them. And if you think I'm kidding about this one, no, I'm not, because the game literally got 2 pieces of paid DLC expansions and then they were like, that's enough. Well, aside from that, there is this Close Encounter skate deck you can get, cosmetic DLC that is priced in a way that makes me lose faith in capitalism. Putting my cheap ass aside, this was still a fantastic game that honestly I wish I played sooner. Give it a shot if you can. And give this game more attention. Seriously, this game was released with very little fanfare last year, and the only other time I heard about this game was at the Game Awards. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, at least it gave me an excuse to do this. So, stop me if you've heard this April Fool's joke before. It's a visual novel that's free on Steam. First Lovers of Ether and now this. The murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Someone finally did it, I see. Who did it? Was it this guy? It can't be this guy. He got retconned. Either way, that's up to you to find out. It actually came out a week ago at the time of this upload, so this was technically a very early April Fool's joke. But I'm a bit late on this, clearly, so. All right, now I'm going to spoil the plot, so stop watching if you don't want to get spoiled. It's free on Steam, so go play it for yourself and then come back to watch this video. I'll give you a few seconds. Still here? Great! Let's do this. By the way, you play as this individual. I think his official name is Barry, but you can call them whatever you want. I decided to call him Fool, just to turn everyone into a Mr. T knockoff. Did this ruin the tone of the story? Absolutely. But was it funny? Again, absolutely, if the photos on Twitter were anything to go by. Also, thanks to Lord Pyromon, I can also do this.
Come on, fool! Let's head to the library! Look, fool! You made him a fool! This isn't a movie, fool! This is real life! Excellent work, fool!
A few moments later.
Alright, let's just move on with the plot synopsis. I really needed a good laugh. It's Fool's first day working on the Mirage Express, one of the more luxurious trains on Mobius, I think. And although this person's on microwave duty, their real job is to make sure guests are okay and safe at someone's murder mystery party. Whose party, you may ask? Amy Rose's birthday. And yeah, she's doing a murder mystery on this train. And not only is she dressed like those 1950s female reporters from the movies, but it looks like everyone here is dressed for the part. We've got a captain, a detective, a sheriff, a locksmith, a butcher, a poet, an LA fitness model, and the typical rich woman at Starbucks who didn't get the right size drink.
I wanted a grande, not a medium.
Oh, and this is also the conductor's final ride, as he'll be retiring after this. Well, he got one hell of a final ride if I do say so myself, but one step at a time here. Anyway, after everybody hands over their tickets and the rules are in place, the party begins. And after a little problem with the train's speed and interrogating Amy for a bit, everyone sees that Sonic was quote-unquote killed, but Fool soon begins to notice shit isn't right. He's actually out cold, and if you mention it to Tails, he brushes it off like it's normal for him to sleep in odd places, almost like he's a crippling alcoholic or something. Anyway, after some interrogation, repairing a Super Monkey Ball arcade cabinet, very subtle guys, messing with Vector, reading poems with Espio, and stealing bling with Blaze and Rouge, all leads point to Shadow, who is suspiciously locking doors and making sure no one gets in or out. After more investigating, he was considered innocent, as he's just trying to get a hold of Amy's surprise birthday gift, which were concert tickets. Okay, now I just feel bad for the brooding bastard. Well, at least she took it well and offered to have Shadow go with her to make up for it. Anyway, with Shadow, Amy, and Tails on standby, we finally get to the conductor car, where we find more incriminating clues and deduce that it was Espio who dealt the quote-unquote killing blow to Sonic. However, Espio was given a sleepy dart to use on Sonic as if it were a part of the game. Oops. Turns out the train itself gave it to him, and Dr. Eggman was behind all of this. Gasp. Oh noes. Also, the train's a sentient badnik with a flicky in it. I honestly didn't know how to bring this up earlier, but the train is capturing Sonic and his friends for a bounty. That bounty? Wanting to be with a conductor for the rest of time, because he's lonely, I guess. Okay then. After saving the flicky from the front of the train, everyone makes it home safely, except for the train because he died. And then everyone gets to celebrate Amy's birthday properly. I actually also find it really funny how Metal Sonic and Sage have this Let's Go Dad t-shirt on. That's adorable. As for Fool, that's normally up to you to decide, but in my case, Fool stuck with the gig, practiced their singing, and now runs a local supermarket. Good shit, man, good shit. Now, I've never reviewed a visual novel, but how do I describe the gameplay of one? You just click on shit and see what happens. Sure, that's oversimplifying it, but it's true. See something that you can highlight, click on it. See a choice box, click on what you think is the best response. You see what I mean? There are a few sections where you have this adorable pixel art style and you gotta move left and right to avoid hazards and meet the ring quota. Whether it's for your train of thought, that I found pretty clever, or the finale where you gotta blast through the train and destroy it with Sonic, the ring quota can get stupidly high sometimes, and the very tail end loves to bombard you with a lot of crap. And with how slow you move left and right, yeah, you're gonna need future vision if you wanna clear these without getting hit. Also, depth perception and hitboxes do be jank. Thankfully, you can try again as many times as you like if you fail, so it's not that much of a pain in the ass. But I'm still gonna bitch about it because how the hell am I gonna do this without getting hit? Aside from that little gameplay shakeup, that's kinda it, really. At least I had a good time with it, and that's quite important for a video game. I am fully aware visual novels are not for everybody, but I do think this is one of those visual novels that you should try. If you're a Sonic fan, and I'm pretty sure they all played this by now, you'll enjoy a lot of jokes and references. And I think there's a Baylina Productions nod in there somewhere, and if that's true, then well played, developers. Well played. It's free on Steam, so your wallet can at least rest easy. At least until Tears of a Kingdom comes out and you're all going to be paying upwards of $100 after tax. Nintendo has you by the balls. It's about time I finally got to this game. But what else can I say about Shovel Knight that hasn't already been said countless times before? I already made the video and I still don't know. Developed by Yacht Club Games, this game became quite the smash hit upon release. So popular, in fact, the titular knight himself became an assist trophy in Smash Bros. He was everywhere, not just as a guest in other games, but his home game was on literally everything at the time. The power of Kickstarter, folks. And to this very day, it is the textbook example of crowdfunded games done right. Take notes, Mighty Number 9, see me after class. The original game was released in 2014 and got extra campaigns throughout the years. One was free and the others were standalone. That doesn't matter though, because they're all available through the Treasure Trove collection. I'll be playing the PC version for this video. Also, would you believe me if I told you I never played this game up until very recently? Yeah, he was everywhere, and I didn't play his game for so long. And now that I'm saying that out loud, the game is turning 10 next year. Jesus. The only thing that I won't be covering in depth is Shovel Knight Showdown, as that's just a Smash clone involving gems. Kinda like Coin Battle. And who the hell unironically played Coin Battle? I did play a bit of Showdown for this video, and it's okay, if a little scattered. Muscle memory did mess with me hard though, as it's just Shovel Knight's control scheme in a platform fighter setting. In case you haven't noticed, it's not really that graceful. Like, at all. It's got a story, but it's about it, really. I'll gladly take his appearance in Rivals of Aether over this. Play it if you're curious, or just very, very bored. With that out of the way, let's start with the original game, now renamed to Shovel of Hope. Before it started though, the game mentioned a body swap mode. I got very confused at first as I thought it was just gonna be some Freaky Friday shit, but that wasn't the case. It just allows you to change the gender of Shovel Knight, Shield Knight, and all the bosses in the game, inspired by an Adventure Time episode according to the developers. And now that I say that out loud, holy shit, that's 2 Adventure Time mentions in 2 separate videos. Maybe it's a sign. And the best part is, you can change this at any time mid-playthrough. You could turn the game into a sausage fest, have some characters transition mid-story, or create your own version of the Woman King. I won't judge. All kidding aside, I feel like more games should do this whenever possible, you know? I kept everything official to make things easier for this video, but the option's there at least. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Shovel of Hope. Let me just spoil this now. Big shocker, this is a damn fine platformer. It may be an old school NES style platformer with a very simple story to match, but the NES aesthetic is just that, for aesthetics. Ain't no way this shit's running on the NES. It is so vibrant throughout. The writing is also full of charm that had me cracking a smile a few times. This moment with the slingshots came to mind. Lunch away, bitches! Ow. And the sub-weapons are an absolute joy to use. You do need magic in order to use it, but that can be upgraded, along with your health. And I recommend you go for the health upgrades because you're as fragile as glass starting out. With enough health upgrades, you can become reinforced glass. Your main weapon is a shovel. You can not only use it to dig, as designed, but you can also use it to give people a good old bitch slap, as designed. You can even bring out your inner Scrooge McDuck and use it like a goddamn pogo stick. Super effective for traversal and against some bosses. Ow, you bitch! You can even use your shovel to uncover secrets, and the game does a really good job rewarding your curiosity when it goes, what the fuck's that over there? Whether it's currencies, sub-weapons, which you can purchase from Jester if you missed them on the stage, or even music sheets scattered about. I'm sure you'll find something useful. It's not perfect though. The titular knight is a bit slippery to control sometimes, especially while airborne. The knockback can get very obnoxious at times, especially during the last few stages, and if you die, you lose a bit of money that you earned and have to get it back. However, if you die during the trek, that cash is just gone. What is this, the South Park Bank?
And it's gone!
That's not the problem though. The problem lies when these bags end up in very hard to reach places, like so. If that ever happens, do yourself a favor and either ignore it, like in the auto-scrolling sections, or just restart the stage entirely. This also applies to the other campaigns as well. I did get a little tired near the end, mostly because some of the stages kinda felt like marathons. Seriously, 6 freaking checkpoints? Also, the journey to the final boss is just a trial and error slog with these vanishing platforms. Oh, and the money issue's at its worst here. Oh, you son of a bitch. Well, at least there are ways to avoid it if you know what you're doing. The bosses themselves also go down like flies when you start bitch slapping them relentlessly, abusing the items, or abusing the 2 chalices that you can buy. You can refill them at any time for free once you meet the Truffle King, so abuse them when you can, especially during the console-exclusive boss fights. Yes, there are console-specific fights. While Kratos is locked to Sony, I thought the Battletoads were going to be a similar case for the Xbox version, but it turns out they're on the PC version as well, and they're both still in the collection. It's a pity I did this fight after finishing the game, so oops. Your reward is mostly armor. You gotta put in a little bit more work for Kratos' reward, but you still get armor at the end of the day. Speaking of armor, I didn't know that was a thing until I got the Toad gear. So I finished the entire game without upgrading my armor once. I'll take that L with dignity, thank you. At least it is possible to finish the game without these upgrades, so go frickin' nuts, I guess. It's just way harder if you decide to do so. I still had a great time with Shovel of Hope, despite the very old school shortcomings and the marathon stages that go on for a little too long. Don't even get me started on the statue that vomits rainbows when you pelt it, while assholes are trying to pelt you off the platform. I hate shit like this. However, we're far from done as we still have the other campaigns to tackle, starring 3 of the bosses from the Order of No Quarter. Yes, that is their name. It was a stretch goal on the Kickstarter campaign, and I believe the characters chosen were voted by backers. I have no frickin' clue. All I know is a fucking rat won the voting polls. Sometimes you find the dumbest shit while looking stuff up. Anyway, I'm going in order of release, so let's start with Plague of Shadows, released in September of 2015. Alright, let me just give this file a name. Lupin. Perfect. And you know what? This was way easier than Shovel of Hope for me. You want proof? Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, sure, platforming is a little slippery as I often tend to overshoot things, but I can easily course correct if that ever does happen. Unless it's a bottomless pit or a bed of spikes, then I'm fucked. You take on the role of Plague Knight, who has a pitiful double jump that somehow cancels hit stun if you have one on standby. Look, I've done dumber shit in this game, so whatever, but can soar through the air with a charged bomb burst. You also have the aforementioned bombs that are thrown in a small arc on the ground, but then thrown downwards at breakneck speeds in the air. There's even other bomb types, burst types, and even different fuses that can be purchased that can completely change how they work. You can even find Shovel Knight's relics and trade them in for more abilities that require magic to use, though you can straight up buy them from Jester if you don't have the relic. And yeah, your magic can be upgraded just like in Shovel of Hope. However, the real game breaker lies in these tonics. You can only carry 5 of them at a time, and they kind of remind me of the Golden Hearts from Breath of the Wild in terms of functionality, except they stay with you until you die, no exceptions. And given how easy it is to stock up on tonics, by either buying them or finding them in stages, Plague Knight becomes an unstoppable flying tank in the right hands. Oh yeah, he can float, and it does break the challenge on a lot of stages, even the journey to the final boss. Well, you gotta buy that explosion type first, but it's very easy to do if you have the moolah to spare. Also, I can't really explain this very well, but chucking bombs like a baseball at literally everything is just so cathartic. Maybe it's because I jumped into this right after finishing Shovel of Hope, which probably wasn't a good idea in hindsight, and just wanted to kill all the bosses that had given me shit previously. Or, you know, just wanted to blow shit up like a coked out demo man. Knockback is still a problem, and just to spoil this now, it's not going away anytime soon, but in Plague of Shadows, I don't really mind it at all. Hell, with the shit he's capable of and the shit that I do, it really does balance him out. However, before you know it, you get to the final boss, you blow everything to Kingdom Come, and it's over. And at least Plague Knight does get a very heartwarming ending. Hell, with this blank-ass stare he's got going on, he damn well needs it. Also, Plague Knight is best boy or girl, and I will die on that hill. Yes, the writing is indeed the best part about Plague of Shadows, and the chemistry between Mona and Plague Knight is just freaking adorable. Progression-wise, if you've played Shovel of Hope, you've played Plague of Shadows. It's almost identical. Sure, there's a few differences, but unless you deliberately go out of your way to find the bonus rooms, challenge stages, or these green coins for research, which is how you get more shit in the shops, the stage layouts are almost identical. It was easier than Shovel of Hope, mostly because of the float upgrade, but 90% of my deaths were just me being absolutely careless. And the other 10% was shit in Propeller Knight stage. God, I fucking hate those cannonballs. It also took me less time to finish compared to Shovel of Hope, so make of that what you will. Alright, 2 down, 2 to go. On to Spectre of Torment, released as a launch title for the Switch's eShop on March 3rd, 2017 as a timed exclusive, then just slowly released on other platforms. This is the only standalone campaign to do this, by the way. Also, I named this file Snake. Don't ask. You know what, let me name the King of Cards file for good measure. Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, I normally don't go too in-depth with the game's story, so let's just try to keep things brief. Spectre of Torment is a prequel to Shovel of Hope, focused on Spectre Knight, or Donovan if you want to be formal. Under orders from the newly formed Enchantress, he's basically recruiting knights for what would eventually become the Order of No Quarter. I guess recruiting folks peacefully isn't an option because his method for recruiting people involves beating the shit out of them. Well, I guess that's how they maintain order around here, but you could have just said, hey, I'm making a new posse, you want to join? As the campaign goes on, we do learn a little bit more about Donovan's past and what happened to his best buddy Lawan, but I'm not going to go any further than the, bare basics. Either way, Donovan has a scythe, and by Mother Russia, he knows how to use it. He can also use it to grind on rails like he's Tony Hawk, which is used like 3 times, I think, and can even run up walls for a bit and jump off them to possibly keep the pace going. That is, if there's another wall to jump to. It's also a really great way to get to higher ground, but in my case, the wall run is often the source of my misery. I often forget he can run up walls in the heat of the moment, and then I end up panicking, causing me to either get crushed or fall to my doom. Not helping this is the fact that he can only run up a single wall for so long. He also has a kind of pseudo-homing attack for objects and enemies, though you gotta time it though, or else you're just gonna go flying in the wrong direction. At least the relics he can get picks up a bit of the slack. You do need red skulls in order to buy them, and they can be found within the stages. And these relics that you can get range from a shortcut in stages, a quick heal in a pinch, temporary floating, slowing down time, sending out a clone of yourself in front of you for more melee range, the works. The game will even teach you how to use them once you buy them, so you're not left completely in the dark. You can even upgrade them to make them more powerful if you ever come across it. Buying all of these items allows you to see this dance between bride and groom. Honestly, I love this scene, but I cannot take Spectre Knight seriously. He's either looking like a child about to piss himself on a sugar rush, or he's having a cocaine-induced fit. That was my fault, granted, but it's just so damn stupid. I don't know why you can still crouch in some of these scenes, it's so funny. You can also find health and magic upgrades for Spectre Knight himself, and if you miss them in stages, Missy over here has you covered. At least she knows when it's payday. This is absolutely adorable, I want to protect this. I also finally acknowledged the armor upgrades this time. I've tried almost all of them, but spent most of the game with this cloak right here, not only because it makes me look like a knockoff Green Goblin, but also because falling down bottomless pits and touching spikes isn't an instant death sentence anymore. And you drop less gold on death, and that saved my skin on numerous occasions, though it did get me into trouble a few times. Son of a bitch. His jumps also got me into trouble because they break blocks. Oh god damn it, I did it again! Why does that keep happening? At least Polar Knight's Tony Hawk section was really fun. Especially when he hits the wall when I flub up my timing. Ow. Compared to Shovel of Hope and Plague of Shadows, progression is way different, as it's more akin to something like Mega Man with a small hub you can explore in between stages. Once you get to the mirror, pick your boss, and have at it. There are still some mandatory events you gotta deal with every now and again, like this kid showing up and getting possessed by the Enchantress and becoming a temporary ally until you gotta fight him again, or Buzz showing up out of nowhere. That one was the funniest to me because they later acknowledged they gotta put bars on the windows. Yeah, despite the grim tone and setting, it's easily the darkest story in the collection, it knows when to give me a good laugh. Even if it was my own damn fault. It's also the collection's shortest campaign, clocking in at 4.5 hours, but I managed to finish this in like 2 recording sessions. But either way, I still had a really great time with it. The gameplay is quite fast-paced and knows when to get a move on, plus the Mega Man-like structure does give this campaign more replayability. Like saying, what if I went to this fight first, or that fight, or what if I did them in this order, you know? I can see why a lot of people love this campaign, especially because I can make the Cannonballs and Propeller Knight stage my bitch! I take back every negative thing I said about Spectre of Torment, 10 out of 10, best campaign! That just leaves us with the final campaign, King of Cards, released in December of 2019. I'll just say it now, don't go playing these back-to-back like I did. Burnout is a complete bitch, folks. And this is where I really started to feel the burn. King of Cards also clocks in at 7 hours, making it the collection's longest expansion, though not by much. It's all about King Knight and his quest to become King of Cards in this game called Joustus. Honestly, I kind of felt like someone else could have started this, because King Knight is one of those characters whose personality you could just summarize by their interactions. He's a pompous asshole, an irredeemable pompous asshole by the end of the game. I'm glad Shovel Knight showed up to pelt his face in. Okay, well, I know I won't be talking about this for long, so let's just talk about Joustus itself real quick. You know, the game that is the central focus of this campaign. Anyway, you get your cards onto these gems with skillful moves and score more gems than your opponent to win. I was never really interested in games like Hearthstone or Gwent, and Joustus, while different in some ways, really wasn't my thing. I'm also absolute trash at Joustus, but it's required you play it at least once. Though you do have to master the card game if you want to fully complete King of Cards, so have fun. Though, ironically, you don't face the judges in the game itself. You beat the shit out of them because there's no stipulation that it had to be in the game itself. I mean, that's funny, but it just makes me ask, like, what the fuck was the point of the card game again? Alright, let's talk about his gameplay, and, okay, I've never played the Wario Land games, but I hear those games brought up a lot when talking about his gameplay style. If Wario Land is this frickin' clunky, then, Jesus Christ. That shoulder bash is his only method of attacking, but bounce off of a wall, enemy, or block, you enter this rebound twirl, good for racking up damage, and good for digging, and even allows you to reach higher ledges with ease. You even have this roll that'll prevent you from bouncing 5 feet in the air, and you get used to all of this, but it's just not really practical in the heat of the moment. And the rebound twirl is also the most unruly thing I've ever had to deal with, especially when you have to bounce off objects the size of fucking pins. The relics barely helped because I really didn't bother going after everything. And I spent most of my medals, the collectibles and stages, and even my own gold on health and magic upgrades. I did try out most of the armors and all the upgrades, however, none of them helped because of how King Knight himself moves and controls. The guy's fine in some boss fights, in fact, he's the best thing about him. But every other time, it's literally just Wario Land, but very, very clumsy. King Knight did not give me the best first impression, and there were so many moments where I wanted to stop, but I pressed on for this video. And there were some points where he went from unbearable to somewhat tolerable. And then the game loves to remind me that these problems exist while also throwing new ones to boot. Like enemies that absolutely swarm you when you least expect it, the overabundance of auto-scrolling sections akin to the tubes in Game Gear Sonic, and some levels just overstay their welcome, very frequently. He also moves automatically while skating on ice. It's not a bad thing on the surface, but mixed up with the auto-scrolling sections, and yeah, you see the problem. I want to vomit. And the final boss after the Enchantress is just the worst. I'll gladly take Spectre of Torment's final boss over this gold abomination. And if you die during the second phase, you gotta start the whole fight over again. And with how frequently he catches you off guard, let's just say you're gonna be spouting words that'll make the AVGN flinch. At least the stages themselves are bite-sized, and similar to those found in a Mario game. Get to the main or secret goal in a stage. There's even a hub map akin to Super Mario Bros. 3, but similar to Shovel of Hope, levels can get long, and they starve you for checkpoints sometimes, even in stages where they really shouldn't be. Most of the time you get 1, but other times you get 2. Oh Christ, this game's going a million miles an hour, slow down! Big shocker here, I didn't like King of Cards. It's fine in concept, but in execution it fell really flat. The humor's great though. In fact, that's the best thing about this campaign. There were multiple moments that actually had me laughing my ass off, like King Knight driving this mini airship like a child going the fact that King Pridemore is probably banging his mom under his nose, Mr. Hat fighting you because you didn't buy anything from his shop, but then takes the whole goddamn store with him when he joins you, and the way the Triple King was being hoisted up, the fact that everyone is in on this Joustus game, even people you wouldn't expect, like Boz over here, or even Spectre Knight. What the fuck? King Knight's punchline does get a little old though. Again, pompous asshole, that's the joke. Anyway, finally finished King of Cards after wanting to rip my hair out, got my fancy title screen, and a thank you from the developers. You are very welcome, guys, but seriously, tone down the auto-scrolling sections next time. Also, I didn't know how to segue into this earlier, but you can play co-op with a buddy. But just like the body swap mode, it's only available for Shovel of Hope. That's lame. Could understand not having it for King of Cards and Spectre of Torment, even if King of Cards could really benefit from it. But for Plague of Shadows, that's such a missed opportunity. I would have loved to double up on the already insane firepower. It does have some competitive elements, similar to Super Mario 3D World, but it's all just numbers going up at the end of the day, so, you know, who cares? Bosses also have twice as much health, healing items aren't shared, but magic, health, and armor upgrades are shared between players, so keep that in mind. I didn't really spend much time in co-op, but from what I've played, I highly recommend it if you have a second player on standby. It is pure chaos at its finest. I had a buddy with me on this one. I would shout him out, but he wishes to remain anonymous. If you want to play the entirety of Shovel of Hope like this, it is technically possible, just don't be like us and knock each other into the mini-bosses by accident. Also, be careful with certain bonus rooms. We accidentally had to force a reset because the both of us tried to get to Chester at the same time and couldn't find a way back. Other than that moment, yeah, it accommodates for both players quite well. There's even amiibo functionality in the Nintendo versions of the game. I completely forgot that was a thing, along with the fact that he got his own line of amiibo figures. From what I looked up, the Shovel Knight amiibo allows you to customize your own knight with any relic in the game. There's even exclusive relics you can only find here. For the other campaigns, you have to find Madame Mimber and scan in their respective amiibo for an exclusive costume and a little fairy companion. That's all cosmetic at the end of the day, so it doesn't really matter. I don't own these versions of the game, nor the amiibo figures, but I really wish these were in all versions of the game and not locked behind a figure. I mean, look at Plague Knight and Spectre Knight's costumes over here. I would have loved to use these in a future playthrough. Nothing I can do here. The 3DS version also has Street Pass functionality. Yeah, I'm just gonna give that a out of 10. Hi, this is Greenboy from the future, and I just realized I forgot to talk about the game's soundtrack composed by Jake Kaufman, so whoops. It's a fantastic soundtrack. I don't know what else you want me to say about it, so yeah, you did good, Jake. You did good. I missed out on this game big time when it first came out, but I'm so glad I finally got to play it for myself. If you want my personal ranking, okay, well, from best to worst, Plague of Shadows is in first for its arsenal and sheer amount of power that you have at your disposal, as well as being very well written. Spectre of Torment in second for its fast-paced and very snappy gameplay, with the only downside being its length. Shovel of Hope is in third for its knockback problems and how long some stages are. Still a blast to play even with a buddy though. And King of Cards ranking dead last due to King Knight's clumsy playstyle, amplified problems from Shovel of Hope, along with its own problems that reveal themselves very frequently, and the bias I have towards card games in general. I do think all of them are worth playing, so don't let my opinions deter you from playing them. Hell, you might actually like King of Cards for all I know, so if so, more power to you. If you somehow never played Shovel Knight, then what the hell are you doing? Go play it. It's definitely worth playing at least once. It's available on literally everything, so I say pick what's most convenient to you. I do recommend you get the Treasure Trove collection and avoid the standalone releases, because for some reason, Plague of Shadows never got a standalone release, and the old cheats and guides from 2015 no longer work. So save yourself the headache and just get the collection for $30-40. It's worth every penny in my book. Again, 4 campaigns and a Smash clone for that price? Go nuts. It's finally done. Get over here and do the editing. I've been waiting for you to finish this for the past month. Thought you'd get this done in March.
I said you had to do in March.
Well, it's not like you're any better. Well, at least it's done. I can finally get to work. Oh, by the way, those two have been standing there for like past few weeks, not budging an inch. Seriously? What the hell are they doing anyway? Oh, sweet! Free indie game! Yeah, it was during a promotion back in March where the game was free to keep on Steam. Look, it was either this or Black Desert. This numbnuts could have gotten both, but didn't feel like it. Either way, this game is as indie as it gets, from its concept to me being very unfamiliar with its developers. So, yeah, this is a first. I'm actually going into this review completely blind. I think the funniest thing about Figment is the fact that they try to promote the second game when you quit the first game. Yeah, I know, I can read between the lines, you're not subtle. Also, hold on a second. Oh shit, Figment 2 came out a few months ago? Well, let's just chalk it up to another game that just slipped right by. Anyway, the game starts with a family bonding session going from 0 to 100 real quick with a goddamn car crash. Lovely. We then meet Dusty, a retired guard who goes to another island to repair his ice machine for his drink, only to find that both his drink and scrapbook are gone when he returns. All thanks to this guy, who sounds like a combination of Tommy Wiseau, Eminem, and Death from Puss in Boots 2. Look, if I can't unhear this, then no one will. I am so sorry.
Come then, and dance. Let the tide of depression roll over you.
Basically, the mind is in peril and it needs saving. Dusty begrudgingly agrees to do so because he just wants his shit back. Look, I'm sorry, you stole my shit, and now you gotta die. Spoiler alert, he doesn't get his journal back, nor does he get his drink. All this for a wake-up call? Yeah, that's the price you gotta pay for a new lease on life, eh? At least I don't have to deal with the occasional aggressive auto-tune. I felt the need to mention that because holy shit, that threw me for a loop big time. As stated previously, the game takes place within one's mind. As a result, you'll be traveling through many aspects that makes you, well, you. From logic to creativity and even the freshest thoughts from within, it's all here. There's even extra little memories you can find if you go off the beaten path. Yeah, gameplay-wise, it's a top-down puzzle game with a Dark Souls-like dodge roll with no iframes and lots of backtracking. In fact, that's the one thing I will critique the game on. The backtracking can get very tedious sometimes. There are a few brain teasers, and yeah, there were some brain scratchers that made me go, God damn it. But yeah, they aren't that bad. And don't worry, I'm gonna stop with the puns. I did have to whip out a guide for a few of these, by the way, because I've got other shit to do and I need to get this video out sometime soon. Dusty also has this slow Sunday morning jog, which makes combat encounters and exploration a very slow chore sometimes. Not even bosses are immune to this problem. You do get XP in the form of endorphins for defeating enemies and bosses, and yeah, that's pretty clever. However, all it does is just increase your health upon leveling up. I didn't really notice any other differences beside that. He doesn't hit any harder, he doesn't get any faster, he's just able to take more punishment. Although Waves of Despair hit like a Ow! Bosses also love to sing their heart out during fights, and the aforementioned autotune gets pretty obvious sometimes. Look, I don't care if someone has the singing voice of Michael Jackson or T-Pain, I just want the songs to be good, and thankfully that is the case. The soundtrack is very good, and some of the few vocal tracks that are in there are also damn good. The voice acting itself, though, is quite passable for an indie title. It's just super obvious everyone's recording with their own mics. Although I am a little miffed towards Dusty's performance. I mean, no offense to the guy who voices him, but his delivery is very stilted. I mean, maybe it was intentional given the circumstances, but hearing him just very blandly go, nuh-uh, nope, nuh-uh, I'm missing a part. Like, I don't know, it just kind of sounds like a weird, cheesy stage play or something. Visually, it does feel a bit, how do I put this, generic? Like those point-and-click games on mobile phones that all seem to share the same art style. I think you know the ones I'm talking about. It looks fine, don't get me wrong, the models are on point and everything is really nice and detailed, but that's just the vibe I kinda get from it, for some reason. Although because of this art style, a lot of times some areas feel a bit samey, leading to a lot of confusion, and depth perception do be jank. The very frequent backtracking also doesn't help matters because, yeah, there are occasions where you do screw up and you kind of have to backtrack to another area and retrace your steps. That happened to me pretty often, and yeah, I didn't like that. And when you die, you start from the last checkpoint. They don't send you too far back, thankfully, but it does kind of wear on you after a little bit when you start dying. I can only hope the sequel actually fix that problem, if I ever get around to it, which I doubt. Despite these issues, I still had a fine enough time, and I felt like my 5 to 6 hours was well spent. And that's very important for a video game. This is a keeper in my books. Unless the second game drastically improves elements to a point where you don't have to play this game anymore, I say, you know what, give it a shot. It's $20, so at least you're not breaking the bank. I still gotta wonder why that game was free to keep during that promo when that second game was on the way. Ugh, I'll never understand the true motivations behind that kind of a power move. Anyway, go play it and give Bedtime Digital Studios some attention. They are gonna need it, and for an independent title, it's the best thing you can do. You're not seriously doing this now, are you? Oh dear God, you're actually serious about this, are you? Yep, I'm actually reviewing this game out of obligation, mostly because of my experience with the first game, which I reviewed 2 years ago. That, and I just really wanted to play this game. Wait, hold on, weren't you gonna look at this after you did that Sonic marathon you planned? Well, that was the plan. A personal plan, but still a plan nevertheless. However, since I have a lot on my plate as is, and this has been staring at me since I first bought it, let's tackle this game now, before I forget. Could you blame me? A good chunk of people even forgot the game came out at all, including me for the record. The game's almost a year old, and it released with very little fanfare and hype after numerous delays. And to make things worse, it released days after a certain big Nintendo IP. I forgot what it was called, but I know Twitter was having a field day with Squid Girls. Bah! Squid Girls are overrated. Dragon Girls are where it's at. What? You ever had one rock your world before? Oh man, it is certainly mind-blowing. so much freaking no. Okay, ignoring that image that has now been burned into my subconscious, the sequel is finally out, and in the end, all that hard work finally paid off. At least, I think so, anyway. The story is way better than the first game. It's more tonally consistent while still giving good laughs, but I find it odd how you're locked into adventure mode on your very first playthrough. Classic mode is still here, but you have to finish adventure mode at least once. Honestly, classic mode just flows better, you know? My first run clocked in at 8 hours, but felt way longer than that. I mean, I'll live because the story's good, but, you know, still very odd. There's 4 playable characters, but I actually only did a full adventure mode playthrough with 2 of the characters. I did one with Lilac and Carol by complete accident, but I did a classic mode playthrough with Mila and newcomer Nira Lee. All 3 of the returning characters are the same as ever, with a few differences. Lilac still has her double jump and dragon boost, but now she can perform a blink dash after a parry. More on that later. Carol has her spider-like motorcycle, no relation to Jessica Drew I hope, and her cat-like athleticism, but she also has this discus of death that murders, well, everything. And it's great for traversal too. You can even throw her bike and save it for later if you have one on standby. And Mila, I think, got the biggest glow up of them all. She's no longer a sitting duck who struggles to kill bosses. Like, she's the complete opposite. Basically, a speeding bullet that can just melt bosses like there's no tomorrow. What's not to love about this killer bitch? She still has that amazing flutter jump and shield that reflects and fires projectiles, and her Q-Blazer is much faster to use, and can be used to pick up a hell of a lot of speed. She's even got a power-up that allows her to fire many of these instruments of death, instead of summoning one with a parry. And finally, we have Nira Lee, the new character for this game. You know, that one cold-hearted panda lady from the first game. What, you thought I was gonna call her a cold-hearted bitch? Okay, the cold-hearted part is true, but she isn't a bitch, that's for damn sure. Honestly, I thought I wasn't gonna like playing as her at first, especially after hearing about how she played. I remember getting that same feeling with Plague of Shadows when I first played that. But all I can say now is, don't sleep on Nira Lee, because goddamn, she be zooming. Didn't you say that about Mila earlier? There's a difference. Nira can pick up speed with just her basic attacks, while just holding forward. Sure, you have to have a good rhythm, and for some reason the faster she gets, the faster her attacks and attack animations become. I have no idea why that happens, but I managed to lap Captain Kalau in the race against him, so I can't really complain about that. Okay, that's not even friggin' fair anymore. Poor guy's still running to this very day, Jesus Christ. She also packs one hell of a punch in combat, making certain encounters and boss fights almost trivial, just like Mila. Also, the ice abilities she has are just the icing on top of the cake. Oh my god, was all that just for a shitty pun? Yes, it was. Now just sit back and chill. What the fuck? You did it again! Either way, I feel like this game should be renamed to Everybody is Better Than Lilac, because I find she has the most trouble killing bosses, since she doesn't really have a projectile, and you have to get really close in order to do any sort of real damage. This wasn't really a problem in the first game, mostly because she was quite powerful, and the game was designed around her specifically. Here, she clearly got hit with a big-ass nerf. Alright, nerf this, faker! Son of a bitch! Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Everybody's got this new parry mechanic now. I still have no idea how it works, especially because I don't think you were supposed to do that. Nah, who cares? It's done anyway. I just enabled the auto parry in the settings, so that's one less thing I gotta worry about in the heat of the moment. It's a pity you can't parry like it's Evo Moment 37, but I'll take the next best thing, damage boosting. There is also other accessibility options in case the game gets a bit too tough, and this game will friggin' test you. You can use potions as well to even the playing field a bit, but it will affect your end stage rank, even if it is just a number going up. I played on the normal difficulty, and the game still kicked my sorry ass sometimes. If you can conquer this on the hardest difficulty without any of the accessibility stuff, give yourself a medal. You know, I just realized something. What is it? The level aesthetics look like something ripped right out of a Sonic game. It's clear someone on the dev team really loved Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Jade is right though. The levels may have borrowed a lot from Sonic, way more than I thought, and I can't stop noticing that. Thanks, John! But honestly, I think they get the job done, so I couldn't care less, even if it is borderline plagiarism. They're fun to run around and explore in, and the boss fights are still large, in charge, and very threatening. Now that's something 2D Sonic wishes it had. However, there are a couple boss fights and levels that I dread every time. Now Lola Lake, absolute drag no matter who you play as. At least Ancestral Forge has fun platforming and light puzzles, Now Lola is literally just overkill ambush while needing to look for 3 parts from this robot from a previous fight, which by the way, was a pain in the ass to beat with Lilac, and then you just sluggishly get to the main boss and beat it with said robot. And the fight itself is literally just a war of attrition. And because I played this with all 4 characters, I had to play this level 4 times. It was not fun. Eesh, certainly looks like a drag. I don't think the game's collision detection is doing you any favors. Look, I wasn't actively trying to break the game. This kind of stupid shit just happens no matter what game I play. Also, I didn't know how to bring this up, but this character, over here, is literally the most annoying character in the game. True. Basically, you like Marine the Raccoon? You know, that one loud character from Sonic Rush Adventure? Yeah, that's basically what he is. Anyway, how about that soundtrack? Is it any good? It's fine, I guess. I can't really recall many tracks off the top of my head. The only ones I can recall are the title screen theme and the underwater stage, which I forgot the name of. I'm pretty sure my editing self will probably flash the name of it on screen. It's certainly an earworm, I will give you that. There's also a ton of bonus stuff that you can unlock as well, but I didn't really bother with it too much. But I'm sure it'll keep you coming back for more, along with the Steam achievements. Either way, Freedom Planet 2 is literally just the first game, but far better. Honestly, if you want to play both of them, they're an easy recommend. They're both relatively cheap on Steam, so you really shouldn't worry about breaking your bank. However, if you want to know the rating for this game specifically, it's a must play. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It deserves all of the TLC, especially because of its release timing last year. It was pretty bad. I'll just say this now, go get it. I'll leave a link below to the Steam page in the description below. I should butt in to mention the game is only available on PC via Steam as of this video's upload. That's not a bad thing, mind you. You could run this thing on a freaking potato PC if you wanted to. I just don't know when the game is ever going to get the console treatment. But to be honest, it's only a matter of time before that happens. The first game took a little bit to come out on console, so odds are they might take their time with this. I wouldn't put it past that. Anyways, so now that that's done, what's next for you? No idea. I've already pre-ordered Phantom Liberty. I gotta do it with the Bayonetta games before the end of this year. I have the Tears of the Kingdom on my backlog, and I'm in the process of working on stuff behind the scenes, so understandable. Now, how do we end this video? Well, what do you mean? The video's basically over. You know, don't we do some funny shit before the credits roll? Oh yeah, that's right, we didn't do that last time. You ever tried that Grimace shake at McDonald's? 1, they don't even sell them in Canada, and 2, it's the end of July. I don't even think they sell them anymore. Screw it. Man, that summer blockbuster looks like it's gonna suck. Jade, what do you think? Andy's gone.
Oh, it's the finale to the trilogy of book adaptations. I can't wait.
I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna look it up.
And that's what finally led to Armageddon.
Reminds me of Spore.
I hate to be that gal, but what is Spore?
Well... Spore was a game created by Will Wright, developed by Maxis, and published by Electronic Arts. And Wright thought, okay, I've already simulated cities and human life, so why don't I do it again, but with evolution? That's essentially what the game was meant to be when it was first revealed at E3 2005. Most of the attention the game got was placed on the game's creature creator. And when they showed the game off the following year, the late Robin Williams made a creature that looked like something Darwin would go,
"Hey, I'm not taking acid ever again."
I mean, he's not wrong in the acid department. When the game arrived in September of 2008, it received mixed to positive reviews and sold 2 million copies in the first 3 weeks. Not bad for a new IP by EA, but they just had to screw it up somehow. Not only was the game flooded with technical problems at launch, because of course it was, but it also had a modified version of Securom as copy protection that was never disclosed. Hell, DRM was even in the free version of the Creature Creator demo. Look, you know you're extremely paranoid when the free version of your $30 demo has DRM in it. It got so bad it became one of the most pirated video games of all time. And by the time they tried to fix it after a couple class action lawsuits, the damage was done before the game released in Australia. I do own the game and its expansions physically, but I opted to repurchase the collection via the 2016 GOG release, because with how old my copy is, and early DRM like Securon being considered a security vulnerability by Microsoft, I didn't want to take any chances. It's $40, and you do get the expansion and parts pack that came out afterwards. Not only is this version 100% DRM free, but it's also among one of the easiest versions of the game to mod. However, if you want to take full advantage of Spore with or without mods, you'll need to connect to the game's servers. It's a big pain in the ass, but goddamn, it was so worth it. Let's talk about that before we get into the main game. Spore allows you to download creatures, buildings, vehicles, ships, and even adventures made by other players. And yes, the servers for the game are still up, but you have to jump through a few hoops if you didn't buy the game on the EA app /Origin. The moment you get online, start stocking up on everything and anything like it's Black Friday. I mean, sure, there's a lot of items created by Maxis, but most of the fun and replay value, in my opinion, comes from seeing stuff from other players, and also screaming, "Son of a bitch, the birds are attacking again!" I should also stress that the game runs at a locked 30 frames per second out of the box. It's playable at the very least, but I did a tweak that allows me to run the game at a higher frame rate, and it's so silky smooth, I ain't even going back to 30 FPS after this. The UI may be extra bouncy as a consequence, but it's only a cosmetic thing at the end of the day. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to get that up and running. Also, I've been running the game at 1080p, and I have to deal with this shit.
That makes sense to me.
Anyway, let's tackle this stage by stage, shall we? Okay, how do I make this not sound boring? You just eat, mate, and maybe kill for good measure if you want to go for these eggshells? I guess? You don't even have to kill things if you don't want to, but something has to die if you want to unlock new parts, though. Pacifism is a myth. Do this for long enough, and you get to advance to the next stage. And no, it's not a sea creature, which unfortunately got left out of the final game. The cutting room floor for this game is certainly interesting. I highly recommend looking into it. If you couldn't tell, it's super basic, but it's over before you know it, so at least it's pretty painless. This is straight up my favorite stage in the game, hands down. You get to explore the planet as your creature, and sure, it's once again basic, but it works. Kinda reminds me of an MMORPG without the multiplayer portion, you know what I mean? You can also unlock new parts by finding them as bones across the planet, or you can charm/murder everything in sight. Every time you find a mate/evolve, you get to customize your creature with the full creature creator, which, yes, is amazing. We'll get to that later. Your priority should be to find some high-level parts, because if you aren't careful, you're going to get slaughtered. Do I have to mention the fucking birds again? Also, as your brain grows in this stage, you can make a small little travel pack. Depending on who's with you, this could friggin' break this stage in half. Whether it's a pack consisting of your own nest or other creatures you've befriended, there's always strength in numbers. I've learned that the hard way a couple times, and oh god damn it, my game just crashed. Okay, so this is where the game sort of branches off a little bit. The next two stages become a very, very clunky RTS game, and it's also painfully slow with no way to speed things up. Can you tell these aren't my favorite stages in the game? At least there's a way to pretty much break the tribal stage, but you don't get that luxury in the civilization stage. In that stage, you just have to watch everything play out while also having to deal with other aggressive cities stealing your spice reserves while trying to convert other cities with violence or religion. I chose religion for this run, and turns out, religion is super effective. What can I say? I've got that big dick energy, you know what I'm saying? And now we have the final stage of the game, allowing you to build your own spaceships and explore/conquer the galaxy. If you have Galactic Adventures installed, you can actually beam down to certain planets and do missions like it's the creature stage again. And that's kind of why I told you to stock up on adventures when you connect it to the servers, but then again, you still gotta download the data, so it makes me wonder what the fuck was the point of downloading them anyway. When you aren't on adventures, your goal is to make it to the center of the galaxy. Doesn't matter how you do it, because once you do so, that's essentially game. By the way, I also tried a route that the Spiffing Brit took in one of his playthroughs. TLDR, I have committed far too many war crimes. I also didn't make it to the center of the universe in time for this video. As for the stage itself, it's okay. Nothing terrible. However, the game isn't just a linear story that you can replay on randomly generated planets over and over again. The game also has many different creators on standby, whether it's creature creator, building creator, ship creator, whatever it is, It's the best thing about this game, bar none. The creators themselves are quite robust, and once you throw in some secret techniques within the editor, and even mods that adds new parts, if you ever get around to that, the only limit is your own twisted imagination. Oh wait, hang on a second, I never mentioned how I discovered the game, did I? It was via videos on YouTube that showed off other creatures with absolute garbage picture quality by today's standards. You can also connect your YouTube account to Spore and directly upload videos you record from anywhere. And honestly, it's certainly ahead of its time, because nowadays uploading straight gameplay like this to social media via your PC or console is practically standard. Still cool to see either way. It's like a time capsule in a way. Pity about EA's terms of service though. I can only assume the class action lawsuits scared them shitless. I am fully aware that Spore isn't for everybody. It's also not as scientifically accurate as it's making itself out to be, but there is still a lot of fun to be had. The game is also extremely unstable on newer hardware. During testing and recording, the game kind of crashed on me a good number of times, and autosaves were few and far between, so make of that what you will. And even though there are other games that do things far better than Spore, I think there's still merit in playing this one. Doesn't matter how you play it, but avoid the physical and EA app versions like the plague. The EA app did something to Spore Galactic Adventures after Origin's discontinuation that makes it a lot harder to mod, and the physical versions still have the invasive DRM in it, which is a bitch to deal with on Windows 10 and above. So yeah, get it on Steam, GOG, or sail the high seas. I don't advocate for that third option, but it's your choice at the end of the day, and I won't stop you. By the way, where the hell did he go anyway? He doesn't normally just waltz right out the front door like that. Oh my god, I'm why not? Also, this is the very first time I'm reviewing a game for this thing, let alone a launch title, so you're welcome, I guess. Depending on who you ask, Nintendo Land is, by technicality, a pack-in title for Nintendo's living/dead ambulance. That is, if you purchase the deluxe model. For those unaware, the Wii U first came in two bundles, an 8GB white model and a 32GB black model, one of which included extra goodies and Nintendo Land in a physical box. The reason I claim it's a pack-in title is because I don't know many people who purchased the white model. Even if 32GB of internal storage was pretty pathetic in 2012, I find 8GB worse. Along with the white color once you get your grubby fingerprints on it. Ugh, it's disgusting. Without an SD card or a costly external hard drive that worked with the damn thing, you're pretty much SOL.
Unless you're me.
The game was also full priced on its own, so it made sense to buy the black model. But later console bundles didn't package Nintendo Land at all, so... So, I know what you might be thinking. What is Nintendo Land? Well, it's actually a game disguised as a tech demo for this thing, the Wii U gamepad. And also, if you notice two of the icons on this thing, I modded this Wii U fully. I don't recommend it, it's a huge pain in the ass. Upon first boot, you'll meet this one-armed floating robotic guide named Monita. The more you play in the attractions and earn coins, the more stuff you can get via this ironically retro pachinko machine. Seriously, this was Nintendo's first HD console and this is what they do with it? What starts as an empty, colorful abyss with a tower in the middle becomes a sight to behold once you start filling the park with little knickknacks from the attractions featured. There's so much shit here, it puts Super Nintendo World to shame. Oh, and this park has stuff Nintendo wouldn't even dare to acknowledge in today's climate. Oh, wait a minute. At the end of the day, it's a party game. Though ironically, 6 of the 12 games have or needs multiplayer in some form, so it's not really much of a party and more like a sad, lonely weekend night with an Alexa.
So, want to hang out? What the hell?
Those 6 attractions are still great though. We got 3 competitive and 3 team attractions. One thing is certain though, every single attraction uses the Wii U gamepad in some form. You also use Mii's. I didn't know how to squeeze that into the script, but I managed to do so anyway. Yeah, let's just talk about the games, shall we? Starting with the competitive attractions, we have Mario Chase. It's just a simple game of tag with a Mario theme. What else did you expect? The gamepad player plays as Mario, and their objective is to just survive, while Toads, using Wii remotes, tries to tag him. Why are the Toads chasing Mario and not Koopas? I don't know, I'm not Nintendo. A star will occasionally appear only for Mario to use, making him completely invincible for a bit. But if the Toads know where to place themselves, yeah, he's screwed. Because if Mario gets tagged once by any Toad within the 2-minute time limit, then they win. And yes, it has to be the Toad because if you play with 2 players, these Yoshi carts will just stun Mario if they get close to him. Or they'll try to anyway.
This was for dropping me into a pit all those years ago, you mustachioed bitch!
It's simple but fun and sometimes very intense with a small group of buddies. I could also say the same thing about Animal Crossing Sweet Day, but there is a difference. The gamepad player controls 2 guards at once, and it just gets super awkward when they both get very far away from each other. And the Wiimote players have to collect as much candy as possible. Hit the given threshold without getting hit 3 times, and the Wiimote players win. However, the more candy you collect on your person, the slower you get, and the more your head looks like a DeviantArt OC about to burst. So it's a good idea not to hoard too much at once, and empty your head out when you need to.
Stop! You violated the law!
So this is my fate now, eh? Bring it, bitch. It's okay, but the game really needed to be tested a bit more, since games could last seconds if the gamepad player has no clue what they're doing. Like me, who has to do mental gymnastics in order to play properly. Next, we have the final competitive attraction, Luigi's Ghost Mansion. The Wii Remote players are the ghost hunters, and the gamepad player is the ghost. Armed with nothing but a flashlight that burns the ghost on contact, the ghost hunters are tasked with hunting the ghost in these maze-like locations. Sheesh, plumbing must be a nightmare here. The flashlight will also run out of juice after a little bit, but thankfully replacement batteries and the occasional super battery will pop up every now and again. But I wouldn't recommend counting the ghost out just yet. Unless it dashes, charges that slow-ass EMP move, or is in bright light, it is completely invisible on the TV and is only visible on the gamepad. The goal for the ghost is to eliminate the hunters. If 3 or more players are involved, for the TV players, they only get 1 life. Get caught once and you're down for the count, unless someone is willing to flash you. If you only have 2 people playing, the ghost hunter gets 3 chances, and there are 3 Monita bots patrolling around the map, with less showing up depending on the player count. I do think it's more fun with 3 or more players due to the higher stakes. Again, everyone only has 1 life and 1 way to revive. With only 2, it kinda gets a bit annoying dealing with the Monita bots when playing as the ghost. At least it makes that EMP move more useful since it not only drains the hunter's battery to 0 if they get hit, but it also stuns the Monita bots for an ungodly amount of time. Jesus, talk about a full system restart. I can see why it's popular among my circle of friends, because it is so easy to get into, and it's still so fun. Just make sure you have Rumble turned on for the Wiimotes, because it's a good indicator on how close the ghost is. The game also won't hesitate to mess with you sometimes, so keep your guard up and check your 6. Now we have the co-op attractions, starting with my favorite, Metroid Blast. I have so many memories with this game, and that counter doesn't lie. It's one of the games that requires the Wii Motion Plus for the TV players, but it's also the only attraction to use the nunchuck alongside it. Huh. Wii Remote players fight enemies on the ground, dressed as Samus, while the gamepad player uses the airship and is also dressed like Samus. Mass-produced model, I think. Cooperation is key for the main missions, and there is a hefty amount of it too. From fighting hordes of enemies to saving civilians from those pesky Metroids or even fighting Crater Ridley, I played this all the time. There is a competitive PvP mode, but it's not really worth talking about. It's still one of my favorite attractions for the regular mode alone. It makes me think I'm a bounty hunter without the guilt of killing younglings. It's not perfect though. The camera is not only slow, but it can also get a little cramped. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, this is the most brutal attraction in the game. Especially with the master requirements in single player. Good God! But once you get into the swing of things, it is damn satisfying. Moving on, we have The Legend of Zelda Battle Quest, one of my other favorite attractions in this game, and it's similar to an on-rail shooter, you could say. The TV players use the Master Sword and Hylian Shield, and the gamepad player uses a bow with a powerful charge shot that murders pretty much everything in one shot, but you can't move while charging. Much like Metroid Blast, the Wii Motion Plus is required for TV players since you get the same precise movement as Skyward Sword. You also have this Skyward Slash if you hold a blade in a certain direction for a bit. It honestly feels great to use. Even the gamepad setup feels pretty natural. Once again, cooperation is key if you want to get to the end of the stage, because everyone has a shared life pool, and if one of you takes too much damage, it's game over. Quick tip for the gamepad players, deal with the Skyborn enemies as soon as you see them, and use the dodge command if it ever pops up.
Also, step aside, Legolas. I'm the new sharpshooter in this bitch. Fuck.
Okay, moving on to our final co-op attraction, we have Pikmin Adventure. I'm personally very unfamiliar with the Pikmin games, and by that I mean I tried Pikmin 3 on Wii U once and I really couldn't get into it, but this attraction was okay. This attraction also introduces Evil Monita. It's literally just Monita with a very evil hat. Because a very specific hat makes everything evil, I guess. Anyway, the gamepad player plays as Olimar with a few Pikmin by his side, and he functions just like he did in those games. The Wii Remote players play as the Pikmin themselves, and they can move independently from Olimar. Kind of. There is a limit to how far you can go off the screen before the game has a goddamn panic attack. I know, game! That doesn't matter, since stages are more closed off. Basically, you beat enemies in one area, move on, grab nectar to level up for the stage, maybe get a power-up for good measure, beat a boss, and then the stage is done. Lather, rinse, repeat for the entire thing. There are a few occasional shakeups, but that's pretty much all you do. My only complaint is jumping as Olimar. You have to flick the touchscreen in a direction to make him jump, even if there are perfectly fine buttons on the gamepad. Just like Zelda Battle Quest, take too much punishment and you're done because you have a shared life pool. However, you can find health upgrades, but don't get used to it because just like the XP, like I said earlier, it resets. Either way, this one was really fun. I'm not really itching to go back and play it, but it was fun, especially with a group of buddies. And when you find a way to abuse iframes. That's glorious. And now that we have all that out of the way, let's rapid fire some of the single player stuff. TLDR, they all use the gamepad and there's no other way to control these games. Captain Falcon's Twister Race is a simple how far can you go racing attraction that's pretty fun if a little unruly because of the way you have to hold the gamepad. Balloon Trip Breeze is pretty forgettable. Donkey Kong Crash Course is a simple time attack minigame, which is more crash than course due to the game's herky-jerk physics. Octopus Dance is a simple Simon Says with body movements. Takamaru's Ninja Castle is just a Wii U tech demo skinned into a Japanese exclusive Famicom minigame that became an assist trophy in Smash Brothers. It's quite fun if a little intense at times, and again, unruly because of the way you have to hold the gamepad. And Yoshi's Fruit Cart is just a memory game that uses the gamepad and TV simultaneously. I would say this is a pain in the ass having to look up and down at the gamepad, but this predates Star Fox Zero by about 4 years. Holy crap, that's a lot of attractions, but it's a party game, and it's as party games get. Because that's all this game is, even if it is just a tech demo. For Nintendo's first HD outing, this looks really damn good. And the attention to detail is certainly commendable. If all this is overwhelming to you, there is a thing called Attraction Tour. It's just you and your buddies going up against each other in all 12 attractions. Highest score wins, by the way. Your opponents and the selection of attractions are shuffled at random. Either all players participate, or you take turns if it's a single-player attraction. So, make sure that gamepad is charged, even if the damn thing can barely hold a charge nowadays. Seriously, the gamepad's battery life sucks. I really gotta replace the battery in this thing soon. This game is still very fun with a group of buddies on standby. Whether it's cooperating to destroy a boss, yelling out ghostly puns before scaring the shit out of us, those close, nail-biting moments that just cause us to scream and shout, there's always fun to be had. And trust me, I and many others had plenty of fun here. If you can get a hold of it physically, then give it a shot. Owning it digitally is out of the question though, and since the game ain't getting a second life anytime soon, either mod a Wii U or try to emulate it. Look, Nintendo ain't making any money off this thing, so I can still say that, right? And don't bother sending the ninjas after me, unless you really want to end up like them. Hey dude, have you seen Mini Jade anywhere?
No, I haven't. Why?
She went to that party last night, and I haven't heard back from her since. I'm just worried sick about her.
Dude, you worry too much. She's a tough cookie. I'm sure she'll turn up.
First time? Oh my goodness, is that a brand new 2D Mario game on the horizon? Why yes, it is. I am recording this on the 21st, which means this game came out yesterday. And I was originally just gonna record as much as I could and give you my thoughts on the game, but I managed to finish the game just now actually, so a lot of my thoughts are fresh off the press, so please be aware, I am gonna spoil a bunch of things, and if you don't wanna be spoiled, stop watching right now and go play the game yourself. The build-up to this game was certainly interesting, I'm not gonna lie. It was revealed in a Nintendo Direct one day, and it was basically like, hey look, new 2D Mario! Although I was initially very worried when I saw the logo for it, I was like, oh no, are we gonna get a very piss-easy new Super Mario Bros. Game? But once I saw the dedicated Nintendo Direct for the game, my worries completely faded. It was basically 2D Mario, but it took all of the drugs. What the hell?
What is happening?
What is that? Oh, what is that thing? Excuse me? Oh yeah, and the animated promos for social media were really damn funny, and they were full of charm too. How else would I learn that Bowser likes big girls? Although eagle-eared viewers may have heard, Mario's voice was a little different. Granted, I didn't hear it at first, but the more I heard it, the more I noticed.
It's me!
And then come to find a month before release, Charles Martinet was no longer voicing the Mario cast. Now that was out of nowhere, I'll give you that. Although thanks to Jeff Keighley on Twitter and a dedicated fan for data mining an in-store demo version of the game, and I have to ask how and why, the Mario Brothers themselves are now voiced by Kevin Afghani. I certainly didn't know who the hell he was before the announcement. He's an up-and-coming VA who's done mostly some web stuff and voiced a character in Genshin Money Sync, because who hasn't voiced a character in that game? And yeah, people were pissed because they didn't know who the hell Afghani was, completely ignoring the fact Martinet was an unknown before he landed the role of Mario. But I'll shut up now. From what I heard, Afghani's a pretty solid choice for Mario. It's just gonna take a bit for me to get used to, you know? And it wasn't just the Mario Brothers that got new voices. A good chunk of the playable cast got new voices. I think the only two that remain was Samantha Kelly's Peach and Toad and Kenny James's Bowser. Anyway, enough lollygagging. On with the game. When I first booted the game up, the game just kind of jumped straight to the title screen, and I was like, huh? And what makes it even worse is the fact that this is just key art for the game. Just no pizzazz, you know? Anyway, story-wise, Bowser becomes a castle thanks to the Wonder Flower, and we gotta stop him before he enacts his plan of a really killer rock show. That is pretty much it, and I find that kind of funny. Although for people who actually played and finished this game, I don't know if this is just me, but the story kind of plays out like a TV show, because when you finish a world, you get this like narrator that basically boils down to, will the gang beat Bowser and save the Flower Kingdom? Will the gang do X or Y? Find out next time. It's perfect for handheld play, but I would not recommend binging this. In terms of playable characters, holy shit, we have a ton. I think this is the most in any mainline Mario title. We have Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Buckenberry, Ala Gold, Toadette, 4 Yoshis, and Nabbit, who, fun fact, is voiced by Lilac. And for the most part, it's all cosmetic, with the exception of Yoshis and Nabbit, who can't use power-ups and suffer knockback. And because those characters are cosmetic, you can easily either switch it up or stick with your favorites throughout the whole game. And as far as I'm aware, there's no completion requirement that requires me to play as everybody. I mean, good God, I am already losing my mind. Whether it's collecting these large flower coins that give you 10 a pop, or finding the Wonder Flower and collecting its Wonder Seed in the stage, or collect a seed at the end of the level. And let me tell you something, this game is gonna make you work for these sons of bitches, as you're gonna have to go through a trippy challenge in order to obtain the seed. And a lot of times it leads you to an alternate goal. But sometimes it's all about dealing with challenges as either an enemy, or riding snail pipes, or even a music concert, or maybe dealing with life or death situations. And yes, let the weed jokes commence, because my God, these are trippy. There are moments where you need a specific amount of Wonder Seeds or purple flower coins to progress, but first off, that's not really a problem, because if you start looking for the Wonder Seeds, you'll be able to immediately just fly right past it, and you'll be swimming in purple flower coins in no time flat, so you will not be running out. There's even badges you can get, which either help you out in the stage, give you a bit of an assist, or makes the stage harder for you. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, we got new power-ups this time around. Of course, we have the usual, Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman, but we've got 3 new ones this time around, the Drill, Bubble, and Elephant. The Drill and Bubble power-ups were pretty fun to use. Drill allows you to drill, duh, but you can do this through the ground and in the ceiling, depending on where you are, and you can even drill through specific blocks, or even specific hard surfaces. The Bubble power-up allows you to trap opponents in a bubble, or use it as a platform so you can get yourself up to higher places. And the Elephant, oh my God, you've got more power, you're much bigger, and you can deal with many objects and obstacles with relative ease thanks to your trunk. Although, I'm just gonna straight up say this now, Mario and Luigi look like Horton, the Toads look like they came straight from Agrabah, and the princesses look like Dumbo's alcoholic hallucinations. Another thing I like about this game is how snappy it is, and it even shows you stuff that other games wouldn't even show. For example, there's a difficulty rating for each stage, and you can swap badges when you start a stage or when you die. I mean, sure, there were points where I went off the stage like a dope, got crushed like a dumbass, and played stupid games, won a stupid prize, but the game was relatively comfortable, and very challenging too. The game's levels are certainly, wonderful, but there's a few things that I noticed when I was playing these stages. One of them, there's no time limit. It's mostly because these stages favor exploration, so you can basically take your time, explore your surroundings, and try to find all those collectibles without worrying about the time limit. I mean, sure, you can attempt to speedrun these stages, unless they're the airship stages, they can burn in hell, but if you don't feel like doing that, then yeah, you can just take your time, which I really like. There is 4-player simultaneous local co-op, as well as online multiplayer. I have not tried those yet, but the co-op is much better here than a new soup, because you can't collide with others. Thank you! You don't have to worry about tossing your friend into a bottomless pit like a dope. I'm gonna straight up say this now, this game is certainly fun, and it puts a refreshing spin on 2D Mario. The game's also quite polished too, I didn't really encounter anything unintentionally game-breaking. So the real question stands, is it worth full price? In my honest opinion, yeah. It's not as expensive as, say, Tears of the Kingdom, good god that's expensive, but it's still worth it in my opinion. Though I technically didn't pay full price because I had some gold points on standby, but either way, I think it's worth it. Honestly, if I had the rating system here, this is a must-play. Because if you want a really good and challenging 2D Mario game for your Nintendo Switch that you can sink your teeth into, this is the one you go with. I still haven't finished the whole game yet. I mean, I technically finished it, but I didn't complete it per se. And that might take a little bit, judging from my file here. So, yeah, I have no idea how to end this video, so, go play it, I guess.
Falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady.
Colder weather, hoodies, pumpkins, candy, brown leaves that fall on the ground and just won't leave you alone, and the sudden hankering for something related to classic monsters. That's right, it's Halloween season, I think. And what better way to celebrate than to review another Wii U game? What are priorities at this point? Now, I know what you're thinking. What exactly is Zombi U? Originally revealed at E3 2011 as Killer Freaks from Outer Space before the name and IP change, it's a game developed by Ubisoft Montpellier, the division best known for the Rayman and Rabbids games, and was released exclusively for the Wii U in 2012. But because the Wii U was practically dead in the water and the game wasn't profitable according to Ubisoft, Rayman Legends, a previously announced Wii U exclusive that was also in development around the same time as this game, went multi-platform. Yikes. Did you know that this game was supposed to be Rabbids' title before higher-ups shot that idea down? That sounds horrifying. It would eventually get a second chance in 2015 for the Xbox One, PS4, and PC under the title Zombie. Yes, they murdered the U, you absolute bastards. However, I'm sticking with the Wii U original for this video. It's totally because of the game's multiplayer, and not the fact that I didn't feel like double dipping with this $20 port. You know what, let's talk about that multiplayer first before we get into the main story mode. Is that cool? Okay, I should warn you that it's 2-player only, and there's no online mode for it. Kinda sucks, but I'm always a sucker for some couch multiplayer stuff. I know, I'm an old fart in the gamer sphere, leave me alone. The survivor is up against the king/queen of zombies. Their goal is to eliminate the survivor by spawning zombies with the Wii U gamepad. The survivors, playing on the TV on the other hand, they just have to survive for as long as they can. The more zombies the gamepad player spawns in, the more XP they get, and the more they'll be able to upgrade themselves with extra perks or maybe even other zombie types later on. The longer the TV player survives, the harder it gets for them, but don't worry, the game will throw the survivors a bone every now and again. All they gotta do is hit a certain kill threshold. Lather, rinse, repeat, until the survivor dies. That's it. There is a capture the flag mode in case you aren't into surviving for as long as you can and racking up the kills, but that's very self-explanatory. At least you can play with the Wiimote and nunchuck combo like it's Call of Duty on Wii. That's cool, I guess. I never played those versions, but this control scheme feels pretty natural. Although it really doesn't matter which mode you play because the balancing is just all over the place, as some zombies are clearly better than others. And most of the zombies here start chasing you the moment they spawn, even if they're on the other side of the goddamn map, while others need a healthy dose of lead before they can even acknowledge your existence. Or in some cases, they just don't give a shit, period. That's funny, but why won't you let me die? Aside from that though, it's damn fun, and sometimes quite intense. Heck, even people who weren't really considered gamers got a kick out of this mode. Trust me, I remember playing this mode a lot with friends and family, and a lot of people gravitated towards the gamepad. I wonder why. It was to my extreme disappointment that the multiplayer wasn't in the re-release. In fact, multiplayer was gutted in its entirety, and that blows big time. I would have loved to actually see this in an online environment. You know, take what Resident Evil would eventually attempt and make it less of a clusterfuck. At least, from what I heard anyway. Was that any good? I never knew anyone in my friend circle who actually played Resident Evil Resistance. Now that that's out of the way, it's story time, baby! Spoiler alert, not like it matters. 400 years ago, a scientist named John Dee made what was known as the Black Prophecy. It's essentially an apocalypse. A no-nonsense ex-military man who goes by the Prepper prepares for said apocalypse, you know, as doomsday preppers do. A secret society known as the Ravens of Dee also researched John's predictions to prevent them from even happening at all. Well, as the saying goes, why fight fate? Because in November of 2012, this prophecy took place in the form of a zombie outbreak within London. The Prepper leads the player to safety and not only receives a sick base of operation in the form of his bunker, but also receives the Prepper pad as well as the cricket bat and a bug-out bag that contains a pistol and some ammo after putting this poor sap out of his misery. From this point forward, most things just happen, and the survivor's just kind of going through the motions in order to survive. Honestly, that's the best way to describe this story. Although going through the motions is the least of your worries when dealing with the infected population of London, where they've probably been through a lot of endurance exercises because, good God, they take a lot of punishment. Whether it's good old-fashioned lead or the cricket bat, they can really take a beating. No wonder the Queen lasted for so long. By the way, we have a normal mode, the mode that I focused on for this video, and a survival mode, where the latter only gives you one life to finish the whole game. Die once, and the credits roll. The former gives you other predetermined survivors when you die, and you have to recover the stuff that you lost. It's kind of like Dark Souls, only gotta kill the previous survivor that was carrying your stuff before you can get it back. It's a little bit more work than just finding your bag on the ground, but whatever, I love killing innocent zombies. You should do it too. And just like Dark Souls, if you die trying to recover your shit, it is gone forever. If that ever happens in normal mode, just start over, because in a game where ammo is very hard to come by, that is quite the punishment for screwing up. So you'll have to rely on your melee weapon that's given to you very early on. Get used to those slow swings and agonizing yells, because that's what you're gonna deal with for the majority of the game. The way you gotta use guns is a little bit odd though. Kinda reminds me of Resident Evil 4 without being a sitting duck. Instead, you're a slow moving pengling. You have to hold the aim button, then press fire. And it's worse with the cricket bat because it is so slow, and if you miss your swings, you risk getting hit, or worse, instant death if they ever decide to lunge at you without the proper means of defense. It gets even worse when you have to do finishers, as you'll be left wide open for a cheap shot if another one is close by. There is this shove you can use that stuns them for an ungodly amount of time, which allows you to run away or deal with them promptly. But if other FPS games like Call of Duty spoiled you, you'll often end up doing this by accident. You also have this quick turn, which is really good for checking your 6, if you know how to use it properly. Again, you'll mostly end up doing this by accident. You'll also have to check the environment with the scanner on the Prepper pad, since there's a lot of hidden stuff that can't be seen normally, and it's a good way to see where zombies are, what can be looted, or whether or not you'll find some useful stuff. 9 times out of 10, you won't really find anything useful, but hey, it's good practice to check. You'll also have to do a lot of inventory management because you can't really carry a lot of stuff. This wouldn't be so bad if items stacked, but in this case, they don't, and it's the goddamn pits. I think this might be as bad or worse than Resident Evil 5's 3x3 grid for an inventory. And just like RE5, the game doesn't pause when you check your inventory or doing anything that requires the gamepad at that moment. But you know what? Why stop with the Resident Evil comparisons? They should have just given us an attaché case that just looks like this. I do enjoy this game's premise, but my biggest issue with it is it's so damn slow. From looking and moving around to even aiming certain weapons and getting other things like throwables and healing items out of your bag, to even sprinting. How do you make sprinting feel slow? But this game somehow managed to accomplish that. Not to mention, the poor Wii U really tends to struggle when a lot of things are happening on screen. This isn't much of a problem in the other versions from what I've heard, but then again, all the gamepad stuff was completely gutted, and as a consequence, the HUD looks like a crowded mess. I'll gladly take the way the Wii U version handles all the HUD elements in the story mode. You're also very damn squishy, leading to many moments where you're trying to escape or do anything, only to have your health suddenly vanish without warning, just like my savings. What, too soon? And with how brown and dark this game is, that's gonna happen a lot. If you couldn't tell already, I do not go back to this game for the story mode. I also threw in the towel once I died the second time at the Tower of London in this crowded section, because I just couldn't take it anymore. From how slow everything feels, to the many dark and claustrophobic areas, to the backtracking, the damaged spongy enemies, the cheap shots, it all adds up quickly. I got my fill with multiplayer, and honestly, I just want to get a move on. I could have bought the other versions of the game, but at that point, why bother? You're just stripping away what made that game unique. There are so many better games that deliver on the scares and feels so much better to play. But if you just want to play this game for the story mode, get the other versions of the game. Preferably not the PC version, since I heard it's pretty buggy and requires Uplay. Make of that what you will. But as stated earlier, the multiplayer is only on Wii U, so track the original version of the game down if you want some good old-fashioned two-player fun. Either way, you can safely skip this game. Besides, it's not like Ubisoft will acknowledge it anytime soon. It didn't really sell as well as they'd hoped, Wii U or otherwise, so this potentially new franchise was pretty much shelved for the foreseeable future. If it had the rabbits as originally intended, that would be a completely different story. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm here reviewing this game and not Green Boy, he's in the other room taking a nap. We had some neighbor problems and, well, let's just say we dealt with them accordingly.
Good evening. I'm Brad Arnold.
We start off tonight with a shocking story. An apartment complex over on Elishaport Drive caught fire last night, catching all of its residents off guard. No one was harmed, but some surviving residents claim to have seen the individual responsible, but disappeared before they could even see who it was. Photos taken by some were of poor quality, and the cameras on site were down for months. Multiple eyewitness reports claimed they were male, wore a dark hoodie, and had brightly colored hair. A color, on the other hand, remains unknown. We urge anyone who sees this possible suspect to notify police or Crime Stoppers,
and to remain vigilant as he could strike at...
That's not important. We dealt with them peacefully. Uh-oh. I was going to revisit this game, but I never thought I'd be doing that so soon. My plan initially was just to play through the game again with version 1.63, add texture mods to clean up the game a little bit, then jump into Phantom Liberty when the time came. But when I found out how extensive 2.0 was, I decided to wait a little bit before jumping in. I also had other reviews in the pipeline, so that's why despite pre-ordering Phantom Liberty, I didn't really feel the need to jump in right away. Especially after I already did 2 playthroughs back-to-back a couple years back, and I didn't want to burn myself out. After finishing V's Very Hard Hell, I didn't really play much of Cyberpunk. I did catch some news about it here and there. It's not like I completely plugged my ears and forgot about the whole thing. No, I'd catch a few bits of news on social media when I did. I saw Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the Netflix anime by Studio Trigger, Cliff Notes review. This was really good, go watch it. And I played a bit of the 1.6 update with my already completed V, mostly to see the other endings that I didn't get to see previously, mess around with the game, and check out the new shit that was added. And thanks to a mod, I was actually able to save the Vs that I created previously and use them in another playthrough. Yes, this means I saved Jesus. I did create this Marilyn Monroe V that I initially used for my Street Kid playthrough, but because the update initially broke all non-cosmetic mods, I had to go with Emo Viola instead. Rate my goth GF. I did get the mod working when I started recording Phantom Liberty though, so Marilyn Monroe technically didn't go to waste, but she didn't import perfectly. Nothing a little manual tweaking won't fix. The character creator has remained unchanged, mostly a few new added cosmetics here and there, I think, I don't know, but it's still fantastic. Oh yeah, and if you're a content creator, that nudity filter as well as disabling the copyrighted soundtrack switch will save your ass in a bind. I kept it on for this video because that's less editing on my part. Still find it odd how the nudity filter locks you out of certain options. I should let you know before jumping in, they did change the system requirements for the PC version of the game, and you have to install and run the game on an SSD. It is perfectly playable on a regular old hard drive, but you may suffer from longer loading times and maybe a few other in-game issues depending on the drive, like stuff not loading properly or stability issues, for example. Thankfully, you can roll back to 1.63 if your PC can't handle the update or if certain mods haven't been updated yet. I'm at least glad the option's there, you know? I do want to start with the main game first because in terms of gameplay, it's practically a different game at this point. I'd be here until the freaking sun exploded if I went through every single minute change, so I'm just going to highlight a few that I noticed while playing. Visually, this game is breathtaking, in a game that already looked cutting edge out of the gate, and Silverhand looks more like Keanu Reeves instead of some Wish.com bootleg. There's actual vehicle combat and a police system. Not like that part matters because that was practically non-existent last time. Most perks actually friggin' work, and it's presented like an actual tree unlike whatever the hell this was. This ain't no goddamn perk tree, that's just a PS3 motherboard. And there's more perks to boot. There's even perks for your vehicle too, like being able to do this. No, come back, it was expensive! Using guns and blades now affects your stamina without the proper perks. There's more weapons and cyberware to obtain. Armor is now tied to cyberware and not clothing, depending on what you find. And speaking of which, there's a limit on cyberware now that can be increased the more you level up within a specific attribute or obtain specific perks. You can even upgrade the cyberware themselves via Ripper Docks. It's also now incredibly easy to get eddies. In fact, you'll be swimming in them if you do some of the side stuff or sell items. And the balancing isn't brain dead or testicular torture. It's not forgiving, that's for damn sure, but normal difficulty still kind of feels a bit brain dead. Go with hard or very hard if you want a proper challenge. At least you aren't dealing with enemies that would instantly destroy you because you weren't at the right level in that specific area no matter your difficulty, because goddamn, that got annoying quickly. Not to mention all the bug fixes and stuff that were added pre-2.0, like this wardrobe system where you can wear whatever you want and not look like a hipster that was dragged through the mud for the sake of better stats. It was definitely needed for Phantom Liberty because, oh my god, that is just a diaper with jet wings on it. Why? Oh, and you can also customize the apartment itself and even buy new ones if you want to. I completely forgot to mention that. And for those on the very bleeding edge of technology, they've also added real-time path tracing, which is just ray tracing on goddamn steroids, and holy shit is this overkill. I can't run this shit. I ain't Gil Bates, Bezos, or Elongated Musk. Though I'm sure Elon Musk would probably buy so many RTX 40 cards if he never bought Twitter. I mean, come on, with $40 billion, he'd have the ultimate gaming setup for every occasion. One of them could probably be Minecraft Java Edition with ray tracing, mark my word. There's even incentives for certain things that were kinda worthless previously. Plus, there's even some arcade games you can play via these cabinets you can find throughout the world. They're nothing more than, here's more stuff to do to pad out playtime, but they're fun at the very least. One of these cabinets, Roach Race, became a free mobile game on iOS and Android with no microtransactions. I love the kind of mobile game that doesn't try to blatantly rob you of your life savings. I am scowling at you, Genshin Star Rail. Keep in mind, both versions have radically different physics. They also added items from the Edgerunners anime, like David's jacket, obtainable through a small quest, and Rebecca's shotgun guts, which can be found in some bushes behind 3 monks at Arasaka Tower. Don't ask how it got there. And that gun has ridiculous kickback, Jesus Christ. However, even after all that, it's still the same great game, just made even better. The story is the same, and it's fine, but the life paths still amount to just flavor text, and that's extremely disappointing, even more so now that I've technically played all 3 life paths. This also applies to Phantom Liberty, and by the way, future me, can you play that clip of me from the first review summarizing the story? Dude, how the hell are you doing this? I'm working on the video as we speak. Like, dude, obey the voice in the sky. The frequency's been twisting my nuts. Are you high? I'm not high. I'm just above the clouds, man.
Give me a minute.
Aside from a location and backstory difference, you still start from square one as you try to make a name for yourself within Night City. You still meet with Jackie Wales and Dexter Deshawn, you still rob a crate from Arasaka and witness the murder of its CEO, Saburo Arasaka. Jackie still dies, V puts the chip in his head, you get your brains blown out by Dex with the chip still in your head, which turns out to be the personality construct of Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves, and you have to get Silverhand out of your head before the construct kills V and claims his or her body as his own. Basically, 2.0 is that again, but with far better visuals. And because of that, I only recorded up until I met Silverhand, so I might just finish it in my spare time, actually. Although the game is more stable, it is not bug-free, even if I am a magnet for this kind of bullshit in the most polished of games. During recording for both the base game and Phantom Liberty, I counted 2 times most of the sounds just completely vanished, and I had to reload or restart the game. That second time happened during a crucial moment in Phantom Liberty, and I couldn't save during that time. Needless to say, I was kinda pissed. These two are either telepathically communicating with each other, or they're in a codec conversation. The game flashed me a few times. Why yes, my eyes did hurt, thank you for asking. NPCs freezing for no reason, or certain characters just loading in places they really shouldn't be in. Vehicle summoning being bugged for me and I couldn't do anything about it. I had V phase through a son of a bitch just to play an arcade game. I punched a boss so hard they tried to assert their dominance on me. I went so fast at one point the game decided to banish me to the back rooms, and I managed to break a main story mission in Phantom Liberty because of that speed. And this Ubisoft Assassin's Creed level glitch right here should have been a sign. And why is Idris Elba looking at me like a disappointed father who saw his son's browser history? Ugh, this is not a good day for Marilyn V. Monroe.
Oh my god!
Nevertheless, the base game is still an amazing open world title you can sink hours into. I know it looks like I skimmed on the details, and you're right, but the main focus of this video is Phantom Liberty, which is around $30-40 give or take. And just like Update 2.0, it is not available on last-gen consoles and Google Stadia, but who the hell cared about that? You also don't have to start from square one because if you want to, you can just straight up skip to Phantom Liberty. It is also recommended that you start from scratch because decisions made in the main story will affect Phantom Liberty in some way. But I skipped to it anyway because anybody got time for that? Fortunately, you do start at level 15 with some cash and perk points to spare, plus other items and perks that will help you navigate the new area of this game, Dogtown. So you're not starting from absolute zero. Also, make sure you get main shit done before starting Phantom Liberty, because once you arrive in Dogtown, you're stuck there until Mr. Hands, one of the fixers in the game, gives you the green light to come and go as you please. He also has a much bigger prominence in both this and the base game, so keep that in mind. No matter your starting point, the whole thing starts with Somi, or Songbird, giving V a call, telling them to come to Dogtown and promising a cure for the ticking time bomb known as Silverhand. After a little attack that'll put epilepsy to shame, Jesus Christ, Johnny's then muted for a bit so Songbird and V can have a little one-on-one chat. She then tells V to protect Rosalind Myers, the president of the NUSA, since the plane carrying her and Songbird is about to crash into Dogtown, and Myers might not survive the onslaught of Dogtown residents who want her head on a spike. After slipping by or killing the folks that are out for blood, V finds Myers, she beats the shit out of V, and then they both escape with their asses and pants intact. We make our way to the garage, and of course we get ambushed, but nothing a good old baseball bat to the head won't fix. Bonk! Songbird then lends some assistance by taking control of the giant mech called the Chimera, but she's unable to properly control it, and then she goes MIA for a bit. One Phantom Pain boss fight and a few retries later, they make their way to the safe spot where they can lay low for a bit until Songbird arrives. She never does, but V and Myers waste no time discussing a backup plan. Their plan B turns out to be an undercover sleeper agent named Solomon Reed, played by Knuckles the Echidna himself, Idris Elba. And this guy ain't fucking around either, he's not in the mood to flex his muscles nor chuckle. Just be thankful he didn't pull the trigger right then and there, V. After a little scuffle in the street and rekindling an old friendship, Reed takes Myers out of Dogtown, and once he comes back, both he and V waste no time recruiting folks for the rescue mission of their lives. The ultimate goal is to rescue Songbird from the leader of Dogtown, Kurt Hansen, and ultimately find a proper cure that hopefully won't cause V to die within 6 months. However, one thing you should know about this city of dreams, everyone has some sort of hidden agenda. Reed doesn't trust shit beyond the Blackwall and wants her detained for everyone's safety, while Songbird doesn't really trust Reed and mostly just wants what's best for everyone, including V. even if it meant withholding certain important nuggets of information. Ultimately, the choice is yours. Will you side with Songbird or will you side with Reed? Both choices do take the plot in radically different directions, so you'll have to find that out for yourself. All I will hint at is that there is an additional ending to the base game, bumping the game's total ending count to 6. Either way, you're in for quite the spy thriller. A spy thriller with a shitload of downtime, unless you're a chronic sleeper. In fact, that's the first piece of advice I should give you. During your downtime, do the side stuff, base game or DLC, because that's more XP, street cred, and eddies you can get. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Dogtown is also surprisingly large, so explore as much of it as you can, because who knows what you'll find. Maybe some powerful gear, crafting recipes, permanent upgrades, or maybe corrupted data for the new relic skill tree. It might not look like much compared to other skill trees, but my god is it a game changer. Basically, overclock your Chrome because god damn. And although Dogtown looks stunning, it also puts my PC through its paces. Yeah, performance is very shaky on my end. Sometimes it performs well, and other times it has a stroke trying to render trash on the ground. Heck, I had to change the settings a few times throughout my playthrough, not just in the game, but within OBS as well, because the number of times the recording dropped frames is a bit crazy, even when launching OBS Studios as an administrator. In hindsight, launching anything as an administrator is a little unsafe, but hey, it worked for a bit. To be very honest with you, I actually had a very good time with Phantom Liberty. Never once throughout my 9 recording sessions that I got bored. There were even moments where I just wanted to keep playing. And yeah, sure, it suffers from the same problems the base game suffers from, but I don't care. I liked Phantom Liberty and the 2.0 update. I'm glad CDPR was able to fix the game and leave it in a much better state than it was day one. Is it perfect? Oh god no. But at least it's much better than the gold version of the game. If you don't know what I'm referring to, remove the update data from your console of choice, disconnect it from the internet, and play the physical version of the game while making sure it doesn't update. All I can say is... My rating hasn't changed, to be honest. It's still a must-play with the same stipulations I mentioned last time. Basically, play it on PC with a proper rig, current-gen consoles, or bust. But now that Phantom Liberty is out, and CDPR is all hands on deck with the new Witcher trilogy on Unreal Engine 5 rather than the proprietary Red Engine, I don't think Cyberpunk will be getting any more paid DLC. Sure, the game might get some bug fixes and maybe a few freebies here and there, but paid DLC is extremely slim. If that ever does happen though, I want to see some Street Kid and Nomad themed expansions. Phantom Liberty is already a Corpo themed expansion, so expanding on the other routes wouldn't hurt, right? Oh my god, video's finally done. Going to bed. You do realize it's like 4 in the afternoon, right?
I'm going to bed!
I know you'd like an explanation. Why did you set up the break?
That must be the pizza. I'll go get it.
Cash is on the counter, Mini Jade.
Needs safes and vaults. They must have dug that shrapnel out of your head. What kind of an idiot are you, Krenner? I can't poke my... Please comply with the following instructions.
Alright, is this another interdimensional Amber Alert? It's the 3rd time this week.
This is not a test.
Earth 1499 has been placed under a universe-wide quarantine by the civil authorities of space-time effective immediately, due to several dimensional tears and suspicious activity within.
A dimensional tear? Huh, that's new. I wonder what caused it.
You idiot, it was the stray dog you took.
What dog?
You know, the round thing that was chained up to someone's lawn.
Oh. Wait a minute.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Oh shit, I am in huge trouble if they find out about this.
My nose through a bank door without getting it blown off. Every newspaper in the country.
Alright, I'm back.
You're bitter. Me and bitter.
So what did I miss?
Oh, don't worry, you really didn't miss much.
Okay then, if you say so.
What do you know about me you couldn't have gotten out of any newspaper? Well, I checked closely all the people.
Oh, thank God I finally get to talk about this trilogy. I heard about the series after the second game was making the rounds, I think. And yes, I do remember the discourse surrounding her supposed Smash Brothers inclusion. I was in the she's too sexy for Smash camp, completely ignoring the fact Solid Snake came from an M-rated series, but honestly, I really should keep my mouth shut. After all that, I started growing more and more curious about the Bayonetta games and their developer, Platinum Games, especially after that display of incompetent balancing that we give Marvel vs. Capcom 3 a run for its money. But since I completely missed out on the initial release for the first two games, Wii U or otherwise, I did the one thing gamers hate doing with a passion: waiting. And I'm glad I did, because the first two games actually got a second chance on Nintendo Switch. However, the first game did get a PC release via Steam before that, so make that a third life for the first game. Or, since it also released on other platforms, I don't know how many second chances this game got. Also, the PC version just kind of went under the radar for no goddamn reason. Just showed up one day without elaborating and just poof. I did play the PC version of Bayonetta 1 for this video, and I will say, it's a solid port. One of the most optimized PC port in recent memory, if I'm not mistaken. Up until the other versions of the game came out, the Xbox 360 version was considered the go-to way to play the first game. And the less I talk about the PS3 version, the better. And despite the positive reception of Bayonetta 1, the sequel almost got scrapped in its entirety because Sega kinda dropped out as publisher. Until Nintendo swooped in and saved the game at the cost of making it a Wii U exclusive, pissing a lot of people off at first. And once the first two games were announced to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo greenlit a third game. Was I hyped for it? Of course I was. I think you guys know what I'm gonna say at this point though, just buy the trilogy on Switch. Though the third game, as of making this video, is a year old and is still full price. Knowing Nintendo, it ain't going on sale digitally. Ever. Unless you manage to find a cheap physical copy out in the wild or on Amazon. Now I know what you're thinking. What took me so long to jump in? And why did I initially waste my money on Sonic Frontiers instead? Some of you might know why, as I brought it up a few times in the past, but for those who are not aware, allow me to refresh you on the Helena Taylor controversy. And that was a friggin' doozy. So, Helena Taylor, the voice of the titular character from the first two games, accused Platinum of not paying her enough money to reprise her role and asked people to boycott the game. Not helping matters was the fact that the game's producer Hideki Kamiya wasn't really doing himself any favors. And yes, I was sadly a victim of Hideki Kamiya's blocking spree because I tweeted at him in English when the tweet that I quote tweeted was written in English. Look, his rules might be absolute garbage because, you know, this is the internet. I've got no ill will towards the guy because, you know, I'm actually brave enough to go outside and touch grass. But when it all came out that it was a miscommunication and the organizations Helen nudged people towards were anti-abortion, the hell was that about? Everyone bought the game out of spite. And she doubled down on this when confronted, by the way. Yikes. It got so bad even Bayonetta's current voice actress, Jennifer Hale, got sucked into all this. Look, I'm all for voice actors getting paid well, but Helena Taylor kinda handled it poorly. And as a result, she'll probably never act or voice act in the industry again. And just to get this out of the way, because I know somebody's gonna ask, both actresses are fantastic in the role. However, they both sound so similar that it's kind of a matter of personal preference to me. It's like going from vanilla to vanilla with chocolate chip on your ice cream, you know what I'm saying?
Incredible. It feels like being bathed in moonlight.
I don't have time to give a shit about who you are or why you're going to the mountain.
The whole situation was not only confusing, but also left a really sour taste in my mouth. And because Activision Blizzard was Activision Blizzard, I bought Frontiers instead. I paid $100 for it, got my soap shoes, and in hindsight, I've got no regrets. Although I just realized I gotta re-review the whole damn game, so shit. However, a whole year has passed since that incident, and everything's presumably settled down, thank God. So I figured, let's just get this done now. So without further ado, let's jump into it. These games take heavy inspiration from the Devil May Cry games in more ways than one. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just look at this. However, there is one major difference that actually sets these games apart. It is incredibly horny, and it's as subtle as the true intentions of the corporation under the heavy rule of capitalism. Where did you think I was going with that, you fucking pervert? It kind of reminds me of how Mortal Kombat used gore to stand out when Street Fighter II was all the rage. Well, either way, you are going to upset the church. The callbacks are also not subtle either. I mean, Team Little Angels is a callback to the team name for Devil May Cry, Team Little Devils. Luca name drops several other characters from other Capcom titles in Bayonetta 1, and the not-so-subtle RE4 nod in that game too, just to name a few. You've got buttons for punches, kicks, and guns with infinite ammo. She carries 4 of these, and instead of switching the guns out, you know, like a normal person, she dual wields them and attaches the other two to her ankles. She's quad wielding this bitch. Don't ask me how this works. You also have Witch Time, which you should master ASAP. Dodging an attack at the right moment will cause time to freeze, sometimes, leaving everything vulnerable for a demonic ass-whooping for a short time. The better the timing, the longer it stays out for. Also, torture attacks are quite powerful. You fill this magic meter up, then you can use them with the push of 2 buttons at the same time when you're near an enemy. Then you just mash until you get a high score. There are even other techniques, upgrades, and items you can unlock by either playing the game normally or buying them from Rodin's shop. There's even items that give you buffs or heals you in a pinch, and even other weapons you can buy. Most of the time, enemies will drop weapons that you can use for a little bit, and they might be powerful, but damn it, are they fragile. If you need to buy stuff in the shop, they'll cost halos. What are they? It's this game's currency, and you get them by either killing enemies or scoring high. Don't worry, they give this shit out like candy, so you don't have to worry about too much grinding, or worse, paying real money for them. Look, the mobile market was still brand new around this time, and it was slowly getting integrated into the system, so shut up. She can also summon demons and limbs made of her own hair. Her clothing's also made of her hair, so I'll let you fill in the blanks on that. Oh, and in a very out-of-character move for Nintendo, along with a Playboy ad for the second game, I'm not kidding by the way, look it up, the Wii U and Switch versions of the first 2 games have exclusive Nintendo-themed costumes you can get by either playing the game or unlocked via Amiibo. I'm just gonna say this now, I'm not a fan of the Peach and Daisy costumes because it just looks like something they'd wear in that little Super Hornio Brothers porn parody. And yes, that is a real parody Nintendo owns. God damn, that's funny. But the Link, Samus, and Fox outfits, I love them. I also love the little details each of these costumes have. As a Nintendo fan, they just put a smile on my face. The Fox outfit is actually my personal favorite from Bayonetta 2, not only because of the adorable little keychains on these R-Wing blasters, which are pretty badass on their own, except they're so big they block Bayo's face on the occasion, what the fuck, but it's actually because of an Easter egg in the final chapter that actually makes the first section bearable. Just like the first game, it's Afterburner. Only with a very pathetic melee attack from Baldo over here. With the Star Fox costume, you get a fully functioning R-Wing, complete with twin blasters, Nova bombs, barrel rolls, the works. And that's how Platinum Games got the go-ahead to develop Star Fox Zero. I'll save that for another day. There is also an exclusive weapon you can get with the Peach amiibo, and it's a chain chomp for your leg. It's slow as hell, but very powerful. It even attacks things passively, and aww, it even falls asleep when you wait around for a bit. I shall name you Pebbles. Don't talk to me or my Pebbles ever again. It's okay. You're a good boy, it's okay. I will say this though, don't play all 3 games back to back. Aside from a few differences that I'll get into shortly, they're all somewhat identical in gameplay. I may have done a blind playthrough of 3 because I haven't played it, weren't you listening? But I did cheat a bit with the first 2 games. I just replayed chapters in both games, mostly with Bayonetta 1 because it is ball-bustingly difficult. It's not as brutal as, say, Dark Souls, that's in a league of its own. But at least Dark Souls isn't as dickish as this game. Most areas in the first game are very brown, and thanks to the red color scheme the game's rocking, it gets very difficult to see enemies or even Bayonetta herself sometimes, since she's also wearing a bit of red and a lot of black. I'm not sure about the beehive hairdo though, there's a lot of hairspray. Don't even get me started on the many gotcha moments this game has a goddamn fetish for. You'd be surprised at the many Ultra Instinct dodges I managed to pull off in this footage. But half the time, I just ended up eating shit one after another. Yeah, thanks for that, dickhead. There's also many moments where you will face off against enemies in very enclosed rooms, which makes the camera very uncooperative and makes things feel claustrophobic. And no, I don't trust the lock-on here because you'll be facing off against many enemies that will try to swarm you. And many of them have boss-like health bars. Sometimes the game will throw 1 or 2 of them at you in the same encounter. Like, damn bro, Paradiso wants this bitch dead. For the record, I played on normal for all 3 games, and still got my ass kicked in this game. And then we have the quick time events. Yet another gotcha moment, but instead of taking damage, you just straight up die. Most deaths from this and my first playthrough came from failing these things, and they are still a pain in the ass now as they were back then. And if you want the best end chapter rank, it's simple. You have to get a high combo count and score, don't use items, do it really fast, and don't get hit. At all. And unless you aren't on your pure platinum game for your first playthrough, pure platinum being the highest rank you can get, then get stoned, bitch. Thankfully, Bayonetta 2 and 3 got rid of these kind of QTEs altogether. In exchange, the second game is extremely overtuned. You can thank Madama Butterfly's Wicked Weaves for that. And sure, it was a thing in the first game, but you could only use it in boss fights. Here, you can just straight up use it for a short time when the magic meter's filled. You can still use torture attacks like last time, but why would you want to do that when you have an ability that just kills everything faster? The only reason I used them was because I hit the buttons by accident. It's no walk in the park, but it's not impossible. Again, I played on normal, and for this game specifically, it was very comfortable. It's light on the bullshit compared to the first game, and now we got beings from Paradiso and Inferno to destroy. Who knew hell was so naughty? There is a co-op mode for this game, but I didn't really play it. Plus, online co-op needs an NSO membership if you aren't playing on Wii U. Well, you still can. Oh yeah, and there's also a playable Jean in this game, but you have to finish the story first. I mean, technically that was the case in Bayonetta 1 and 3. She plays exactly like Bayonetta, so just like her voice actress, pick your poison. That's all I'm gonna say. And now we move on to Bayonetta 3, and just to spoil this now, this overview trailer lied. I also just realized I skimped on the story for all 3 games, and it's mostly because it's not really the game's strongest aspect. I figured these stories were kind of uneventful going in, but seeing them for myself, oh boy, not only forgettable, but in this case, confusing because of the alternate dimension shenanigans. Trust me, I hate it. I blame Spoderman. First off, Bayonetta is not only rocking her design from the first game, which I'm not a fan of to begin with, but she also dies. What? Look, I knew she was gonna bite it thanks to the Game Awards teaser, but I thought that would happen later in the game, not within the first few minutes. Also, this new character here, Viola, is a descendant of Cereza, Bayo's real name, and Luca from her universe. I guess she saw something in him that I didn't.
Grab his dick and twist it!
Sorry, my balls shut. I'm also not a fan of Bayonetta's default look for this game. Thank God you can change it later, and I did slowly warm up to it, but it was still very weird and creepy. She's also the same child that Bayonetta met in the first game, and Bayonetta 2 was retconned to be an alternate continuity. Like, you see what I mean? It just gets confusing quickly. Not to mention, I did the first chapter without skipping any cutscenes, and it took me half a goddamn hour to finish one chapter, not counting the little prologue at the beginning. I knew what I was getting into going in, but by the third game, I was so checked out, so I decided to just skip it all, and thank God you can skip them whenever. I mean, there were a few scenes I didn't skip for the sake of B-roll, so that's on me. Even then, it still took a while due to how expansive many areas are. You are rewarded for exploration, thankfully, such as like this new currency for this game, orbs, yes, that's what they're called, along with the returning halos and items and these challenge gates that get you good rewards when you complete them for the first time. By the way, this was supposed to be an open world title, but was changed to a more traditional format with an open-ended level design last minute due to technical issues. Even then, the final game still kind of suffers due to the Switch's aging hardware. This game actually looks pretty great visually, sometimes, but it's obvious that the game struggles hard when the action gets really intense. No wonder people play this game via an emulator. Yes, people do that. The new game mechanic this time around is being able to control your summons. You have 3 of them you can equip at one time and can swap them out with a D-pad, with more unlocking as you progress. You're also unable to control Bayo while the summons are out, so make sure you're in a safe spot when using them. Thankfully, you can summon them, mash, and then regain control to lay the absurd punishment, or as a method of distraction, which is just as effective as lamp teabagging in front of you. What, am I the only one who remembers Smashed has them? You also won't be able to summon them if an area is too cramped, have no magic, or you take too much damage, so you'll have to rely on the old weapons. There's plenty of weapons you can use, but I do like her default weapon this go-around, Color My World, and if you have save data from the first 2 games on Switch, you can unlock those games' weapons. And you know I had to go with Love is Blue as soon as I could, because her Panther Within technique is so much faster than Madama Butterfly when using Color My World. Could you speed it up? Time is valuable! The world's dying, hello! There's also a few sections in the game where you get to control these guys without the use of magic. And aside from the one spider thing that swings around like Spider-Man, and the literal bullet train, which those were really fun, I am not a fan of how the majority of them control. Most of them are too slow in this very fast-paced game. Jean is actually playable this go-around, pretty early on too, in these very hit-or-miss stealth sections. These kaiju sections, though, suck. It is so painfully slow that I already had 3 kids and 6 grandchildren by the time anything comes out. Next we have newcomer Viola, and oh boy, where do I begin? I honestly don't know what to make of her from what little I've gathered from the story. I don't know if she's supposed to be the comic relief character or the badass in training. She gets her moments, and by God, she gets her moments. But then there are moments that just don't add up or just exist for an out-of-place laugh. But the thing is, her gameplay is actually really great. It's fantastic even. So I don't understand the general hate for her. In some ways, she almost reminds me of Raiden from Metal Gear Rising. It's the parry. It's totally the goddamn parry. Oh, and look at that, same developer too. She's got a bit of a learning curve, but once you get the hang of it, like, she's very friggin' rewarding. She also has Cheshire, who obliterates everything while Viola punches the piss out of him. Jesus. I also really dig her design too, and with the different t-shirts you can get with halos, you can rock a completely different vibe. And speaking of which, you can buy new costumes and colors for Bayonetta herself as well. And oh my god, it's the best thing about this game. Why? It fixes the visibility issue I had with the first 2 games. More so the first game because I rocked the Star Fox costume for the majority of Bayonetta 2, and I can easily spot her with those colors on. In this game, I can just change the color of her costumes, default or other unlockable ones, to something that doesn't blend in with the background, and boom, I can actually spot her in the heat of the moment. I love this feature. However, Bayonetta 3 not only suffers in the stability and visuals department, as stated earlier, but it also feels a bit, I don't know, bloated at times. The load times don't help either, and they may be passable for the Nintendo Switch, but they certainly add up throughout a playthrough. At least it's not as bad as, say, Mortal Kombat 1 on Switch. I'd be screaming bloody murder if that was the case. But at least you can practice for a bit while the game is still loading. You can't really do that with the PC version of Bayonetta 1 because it goes by so quickly you don't really have time to train. There's a total of 20 chapters in this game, but if you're dedicated and just went from start to finish with no deviation, according to HowLongToBeat.com, you could finish the game in 13 hours. I still had a good time with Bayonetta 3 because if I didn't say it, I'd be labeled as a dickwad for that. But it makes me think, yeah, this game was a bit too much for the Nintendo Switch. Is it due to the game's scope? No idea. But at least my time wasn't wasted. Oh yeah, and this game's got a photo mode, because every game has to have a photo mode these days. I had a really good time with all 3 games. In fact, I do think you should play these. You don't have to play all of them, but if you want a recommendation, I'd say go with 2. If you like it and are willing to suffer through the rocky performance of 3 or the difficulty and antiquated design of 1, then you know what? Go for it. Although I do wonder, judging by how Bayonetta 3 ends, I wonder how a 4th game will play out without Bayonetta herself, and Hideki Kamiya because he left Platinum back in October of 2023. Not to mention Yusuke Hashimoto, the director of the first 2 games and was supposed to be the director of 3, also left Platinum mid-development. Yikes. Thankfully, Yusuke Miyata, different person, was actually able to pick up some of the pieces, but it really makes me wonder, where do we go from here? Only time will tell, to be honest. There is Cereza and the Lost Demon, an origin story for the Nintendo Switch that came out of left field one day, and completely changed the gameplay, but I didn't really play it, and I don't really feel like it, so I can't judge. But right now, I need a break. Finally, video's done. No wonder he does the editing for this stuff.
This is an emergency global announcement. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. An evacuation warning for Earth 1499 is now in effect.
Oh, well that's not good. Pebbles, no! What have you done? You've single-handedly destroyed this entire dimension! Oh, fantastic! Blame me for just wanting to save a little doggo from being neglected and chained to someone's front lawn! Your kindness for that thing has costed the lives of billions! Oh, look at you acting like you don't have any skeletons in your closet, you compassionless merc! Is that so? Why don't you say that to my face again, tough guy? Oh, wanting to get rough now, are we? I'd like to see you try.
Why don't you swing first then?
For crying out loud!
With goddamn pleasure!
Hello? Guys?